Chapter 844. The Eagle Party's refusal to fight caused the alliance of experts from Cloud and Night Moon to feel a little awkward. Gu Fei had no choice but to leave after his failed attempt to summon the deceit door. Everyone spread out to find out more about the Eagle Party. The reaction of the players varied. Some were envious, some were jealous, some were in awe, and some were disapproving. But overall, the players of Grassy City recognized the Eagle Party's strength. Even in the entire parallel world, they would be ranked in the top 30, let alone in this Grassy City. They were the strongest group of experts in this city, but the 30 of them had formed a mercenary group and refused to participate in any other organization. Many guilds in Grassy City wanted to rope in the Eagle Party, but the Eagle Party's attitude was very clear. You don't need to rope them in. If you need something, just say it. If you pay, we'll do it. This made things very difficult for the guilds in Grassy City. Whenever there was a conflict with another guild, they would immediately ask for the Eagle Party's help, or check if the Eagle Party had helped their opponent. The Eagle Party used this special method to influence the power structure of Grassy City, and it was said that even the neighboring cities were affected. Whenever there was a guild conflict, the leaders of the guilds would worry about whether or not their opponents had such a powerful party in their midst. From the words of the players from the big guilds in Grassy City, it could be seen that the guilds in the area hated and feared the Eagle Party, which was independent of the other guilds. They only cared about money and not relationships. The influence of the Eagle Corps had on the guilds was that all the big guilds that could stand firm in Grassy City had a wealthy leader. But no matter how rich the players were, they didn't want to be stuck in this bottomless pit. It was said that the 4 big guilds of Grassy City had a private agreement that no matter what happened, they would not ask for the Eagle Party's help. It was unknown how many of them were sincere about this agreement, and how many were just trying to numb their opponents. In the end, the 4 big guilds didn't receive any help from the Eagle Party in the recent city war. It seemed that this agreement was somewhat effective. The experts from both cities were sitting around a table in a tavern in flourishing Grass City, exchanging the information they had gathered. In the end, they all turned to look at the Han family's young master, who had the most wine bottles piled up in front of him. Although he didn't like this person, he had to admit that this person had more ideas than the average person, and was also more effective. Yin Zhongmu tried his best to think about this fellow's good points. After all, it was quite painful to rely on someone you hated. Yin Zhongmu tried his best to weaken this feeling. In the end, he concluded that there were 2 things he admired about the Han family young master. First, he drank boldly. The second was Qianli drunk, Sword Demon's friend. Apart from that, there was nothing else. Yin Zhongmu believed that he had already done his best. The Han family young master listened to these bits and pieces of information, and didn't say anything for a while. According to the first player who arrived at the tavern, when he arrived, the Han family young master was already sitting there. Therefore, everyone was actually quite suspicious that the person who asked them to gather information did not do it himself, especially when they saw the pile of empty bottles in front of him. Seeing that the Han family young master didn't say anything, Brother Yu decided to share his opinion, so he said, "From the information we gathered and the mercenary group mission records in Grassy City's mercenary building, the Eagle Party is a bit like a semi-professional mercenary group. They take money to do things, but they don't do everything. They are quite picky about their missions. From the few missions we heard about, all of them had high rewards." Jiannan, who could be considered as a fellow mercenary group, sighed. Of course they have the right to be picky if they are famous. He had also seen the rewards of the Eagle Party's missions, and as a former professional mercenary group, he was quite envious. But from the mercenary group mission records in the mercenary building, they haven't accepted many missions, Brother Yu said. They have a lot of business. Don't they have footprints all over the southeast? Jiannan said. That's possible. Brother Yu nodded. Other than that, there is another detail that I'm not sure if everyone has noticed. The Eagle Party has always done missions in groups of 10. I think this is the first time they sent out a group of 30 people to deal with Old Yin. What does this mean? Yin Zhongmu asked. I think we need more information to summarize. I want to go to the main cities nearby and ask around. Brother Yu was always full of energy when it came to gathering information. Yin Zhongmu nodded and randomly picked 3 players. You and Brother Yu can go together. He also knew that Brother Yu would definitely use the teleportation scroll, so he ordered 3 of them, just enough for 1 scroll. Brother Yu was obviously prepared. He had already asked around for the names of the main cities nearby, and obtained the scroll from the workshop. He didn't hesitate at all. What else does Brother Yu want to know? Yin Zhongmu asked. The Eagle Party's true background and style of doing things, Han family young master replied. Is there a need for that? Yin Zhongmu felt that it was more important to know their opponent's strength. Now that they knew, the next step was to find them and kill them. Understanding their background and style of doing things didn't seem to be necessary, right? Right now, we can't even find them. If we don't know anything, how are we going to lure them out? Take the mercenary group as an example. Disguising as an employer and contacting them with a large order is the easiest way to lure them out. However, from Brother Yu's analysis, this method might not work on the Eagle group. Han family's young master said. Yin Zhongmu thought for a bit and nodded. With their style of doing things, it won't be easy to trick them. After saying this, Yin Zhongmu was startled. It turned out that understanding the opponent's style of doing things was useful. Then what do we do next? Yu Tian Shenming was a bit impatient. Han family young master laughed. The Eagle Party is hiding, and they seem to be quite pleased with themselves. I think they've forgotten that they're just a gun in someone else's hand. Yin Zhongmu, if you want to completely solve this problem, breaking the gun is useless. If it's broken, we can always make another one. We need to target the person using the gun. You're talking about Ing Chi's workshop? Yin Zhongmu suddenly understood. Of course. But they're a workshop. Fighting and killing doesn't affect them much, right? Yin Zhongmu said helplessly. Of course it wouldn't affect them under normal circumstances, but right now their workshop is in a special situation, so it can still be of some use. Han family young master laughed. Just say it, don't beat around the bush, okay? Yin Zhongmu wasn't in a good mood. Ing Chi's workshop is currently going through a huge crisis. Their first-line directors and second-line city managers have all been poached, and there's a lack of manpower. Right now, out of the 19 directors, only 1 is left, and there are only 37 city managers left. With such a large change in personnel, the handover process will definitely be tense. What kind of handover process will there be in the game? Of course, it's the transfer of resources and inventory. Yin Zhongmu understood halfway through. This is a good time to cause some trouble. Han family young master nodded. But how do we know where they'll do the handover? Yin Zhongmu was confused. I've already asked around. Han family young master drank his wine, his smile sinister. Ing Chi, unscathed in battle, had a pitiful look on his face. Why didn't you say so earlier? Yin Zhongmu suddenly stood up. I've just confirmed it. Han family young master laughed. These places don't have much protection. The only place we've been to is the place where the Eagle Group is hiding. That place is one of the warehouses of a director in the southeast. When we do the handover, we'll have to go through a tough battle. However, we can avoid fighting the Eagle Group. We just need to focus on one target. I've already said that out of the 19 directors, there's only 1 left. It looks like he'll be the only one left, so he's our main target. But if we kill him to level 10, he'll have the system's protection. He'll be able to do the same. Yin Zhongmu said. Then we'll talk about it after we get to level 10. Han family young master said. Yin Zhongmu thought about it. Having something to do right now is good. And it'll be a powerful counterattack against Ing Chi Studio. Indeed, what's the point of fighting the Eagle Group? Even if they were completely wiped out, Ing Chi's boss could just wave his money and spread his equipment, and easily recruit another group of experts. The Eagle Group's scariest part wasn't their strength, but their background. As long as they had this background, even if the Eagle Group was wiped out, a second Eagle Group would immediately rise. However, the 10 Society Alliance wouldn't be able to rise again so quickly. Say it. What do we do? Yin Zhongmu said to Han family young master. Han family young master had already taken out a piece of paper and started writing, saying, this is where their warehouses are in the main cities. They'll definitely go there. The target is called Wu Yi. I think you've already waited for him at the revival point in Moonlit Night City. You should know him. These people shouldn't have much protection, and their strength should be average. Just send a few people to watch over them. Since we don't know which revival point Wu Yi will appear at after he dies, there's no point in waiting at the revival point. We can only kill him every time we see him. Yun Zhongmu took the paper that Han family young master handed over, and looked at the densely packed main cities and coordinates of Yingqi Studios' warehouse. He was so shocked that he couldn't close his mouth. Where did you get all this from? I'm half a director, how hard would it be to get all this? Han family young master said it casually, but in reality, he didn't think that he would be able to get all this information. After all, he didn't know that Wu Yi was one of the directors of Yingqi Studio. Young Master Han contacted Nitrite because he wanted to ask the directors of Yingqi Group, who had already invested in cloud soaring, about the relationship between the Eagle Group and Yingqi Group. In the end, these directors had heard of the Eagle Group, but they didn't know much about its relationship with Yingqi Group. The Eagle Group was just a team of private soldiers that Matchless Miracle kept to accompany him in the game. It could be said that it had little to do with the business of the studio, so it had nothing to do with the directors. In the end, they didn't know much about Yingqi Studio, but they knew that they were taking over. Nitrite also sighed to Han family young master. Resources were the foundation of the studio, and it seemed like Yingqi Studio wouldn't fall because of this change in personnel. Yun Tung would be exposed sooner or later, and Yingqi Studio would definitely treat Yun Tung as their mortal enemy. Nitrite couldn't help but worry. Han family young master asked Nitrite for this information, and expressed that he wanted to cause trouble for Yingqi Studio. Although Nitrite knew that killing people wouldn't affect the studio much, it was better to have more trouble. Who cares what kind of trouble it was, as long as it was Yingqi Studio, he would welcome it. Therefore, he didn't hesitate to provide the information to Han family young master. The locations of these warehouses weren't really confidential. After all, the house was designed in the game, and robbery was impossible. Nitrite asked the directors about this, and they didn't suspect anything. They all told him about the warehouses they had. Just like that, the information reached the hands of the Han family's young master. Now it finally had a use. Attacking Yingqi Studio? That was neglecting the essentials. Only by crushing Yingqi Studio could everyone rest easy. Although this wasn't possible, the most players could do was fight and kill. After Yun Zhongmu received the coordinates, he immediately took action. He assigned people, prepared scrolls, and teleported. If there were 4 people in each warehouse, the 50 people that Yun Zhongmu brought weren't enough. Unscathed in battle was a master of acting cool, and it was enough for him to go alone. Yutian Shenming also wanted to act cool, but when he saw that he needed to find the coordinates, he didn't dare to say anything. Han family young master directly told them 5 nights' current location. Actually, they would definitely be able to kill him if they chased after this point. The other points were just a matter of making preparations beforehand. It had to be said that 5 nights' current situation was quite pitiful. Normally, a mole would betray a group of people, but now he was being betrayed by a group of mole. Of course, other than Wu Yi, the other directors didn't know what was going to happen. The boss simply asked them about 5 nights' current location. You'll be in charge of the Eagle team. Han family young master said to Gu Fei. Grassy City's warehouse was also one of the places that they would go, even though it wasn't their turn yet. What's the point of killing that guy? Gu Fei had a face of boredom and couldn't accept it. He was here to fight against experts. Who was 5 nights? 1 finger was enough. There wasn't any challenge at all. You can kill everyone in the Eagle team. No one will mind. Han family young master said. Gu Fei left. Yutian Shenming, Jiannan drifting away, and Yun Zhongmu all chose their own places to go. After everyone left, Shui Shen and Lu Ku came over. Your plan isn't bad, but what about forever? First, we'll take out his backer, then we'll slowly take care of him. Han family young master said. You're already sure it's him? Shui Shen asked. Who cares? Just his name alone is worth killing. Han family young master said. Shameless. Shui Shen looked at him in disdain. He and Lu Ku also flew away. The 2 of them also took a set of coordinates and went on a trip. Everyone flew away. This time, they did not realize that they had all gone to work, and young Master Han was once again left leisurely in the tavern. Main City Bowser. Just from the name, one could tell that it wasn't the same style as Cloud Moon White Stone. This was another faraway main city. To the players in Cloud Moon Night, it was almost unheard of. At this moment, Yin Zhongmu was standing on the land of this main city. Looking at the buildings, the streets, and the players, it was no different from any other main city. Yin Zhongmu wasn't in the mood to admire these things. He wasn't here for a vacation. 5 Nights was about to come to this main city for an inventory. As the main character of this incident, Yin Zhongmu felt that he had the responsibility and obligation to stab 5 Nights in the back. He brought 3 of his friends, and the 4 of them followed the coordinates to the main city. The warehouse was on a very wide street with a lot of people. The protection of private residences in the game was very good, so no matter how important it was, there was no need to hide it in a remote place. Yin Zhongmu and the others went to the street and followed the house number. Finally, they found this warehouse. It was a small 2-story building. They're so fucking rich. Yin Zhongmu cursed. The houses in the game were sold according to the area. This kind of big house was naturally not cheap. Yin Zhongmu and the 10 Guild Alliance couldn't afford to build such a high-class house, but their studio bought such a big house to use as a warehouse. I don't know if they're here yet, a player beside Yin Zhongmu said. Yin Zhongmu looked left and right, then went up and knocked on the door. He just wanted to make sure that there was someone inside. Let's wait and see. After knocking a few times, there was no reply. Yin Zhongmu said in a low voice. Yin Zhongmu felt that his luck was pretty good this time. The 4 of them waited for less than 5 minutes, and the godly archer in the team had already pointed at the street. The 2 walked side by side, getting closer and closer. Yin Zhongmu could already see clearly that one of them was the legendary high-level player that they had guarded at the archer shooting range in Moonlit City. It's the archer. Don't let him get away, Yin Zhongmu said as he went into stealth. What about the guy next to him? Someone asked. Take care of the target first. We'll see what happens with the other one. If he dares to get in our way, then we'll take care of him as well. Yin Zhongmu could roughly guess what kind of people 5 Nights had come with. He didn't know if the Han family young master had made arrangements for these people. As long as they knew what was good for them, he wouldn't make things difficult for them. If they caused trouble, then he wouldn't be polite either. Yin Zhongmu, who was in stealth, was already moving towards 5 Nights. Apart from the archer, there was also a warrior and a cleric. They were dealing with a mere businessman from the studio, so they didn't ask for any cooperation. Yin Zhongmu figured that he alone would be enough. Chapter 845. 5 Nights was walking side by side with his former director. Their relationship wasn't exactly good, but it wasn't exactly bad either. If it was in the past, the 2 of them definitely wouldn't be so silent when they walked together. Yingqi Studio could be considered a big company, and it was led by the 19 directors. Standing together with any one of them, there would be endless business topics to talk about. However, right now the 2 of them had a tacit understanding that they didn't say anything, especially about the departure of Yingqi Studio. 5 Nights couldn't help but think of the director from before. He was surprised that 5 Nights was still guarding Yingqi, and he tried his best to tell him about the mistake of his choice. This made 5 Nights extremely depressed. Did he make the wrong choice? He clearly didn't have a choice. We're almost there, it's just up ahead. Just as 5 Nights was thinking about his helplessness, his old colleague pointed ahead and said to him. 5 Nights nodded and forced a smile. Are there a lot of things? Quite a lot, the other person replied. Then hurry up, 5 Nights said. Okay. The other person nodded and quickly walked to the front. He opened the door and said, if there aren't any problems, I'll transfer the authority to you. After saying that, the door opened. The person moved to the side and said, come in. As he said that, he turned around and looked, but 5 Nights was nowhere to be seen. The person's face was blank. He looked left and right on the street, but 5 Nights was nowhere to be seen. He hurriedly sent a message to 5 Nights. Where are you? He was killed. Wu Yi replied, feeling extremely depressed. He had been drinking cold water for the past few days. He was just casually walking on the street, and he didn't offend anyone. How did he get killed? 5 knights didn't even know who killed him. He only felt a pain in his waist. The opponent's attack power was undoubtedly very high, and he was killed in 2 hits. What the hell? 5 knights cursed the players who killed him at the resurrection point. Then he sent a message to his old colleague. "Hold on, I'm coming." He flipped a scroll, teleported, and walked towards the street while thinking about this matter. Yun Zhongmu's 3 brothers were all stunned. As soon as Yun Zhongmu appeared, they were prepared to rush over to help, but they didn't expect that as soon as Yun Zhongmu appeared, his opponent would turn into a streak of white light and disappear. This person was killed without any suspense at all. What was even funnier was that his companion didn't know anything. He was already dead, but he was still looking around. These guys were really flowers that grew up in a greenhouse. They didn't have any PK awareness at all. Just as the 3 of them were looking at each other with disdain, Cloud Twilight also turned around. He shook his head and said, "Boring. Quite a noob. There's no sense of accomplishment in killing an opponent like this." "What's next?" the 3 asked. "He should be coming back." "Let's wait a bit longer," Cloud Twilight said. He waited for his stealth to come off cooldown before entering stealth again. The 4 of them continued to stand guard on the street. At the same time, they reminded the others that they had succeeded and told them to stay alert. The target might change to their place. As it turned out, Wu Ye's combat awareness was indeed quite poor. Even though he was killed once, he still thought it was some kind of misunderstanding. He was well aware that he was very weak and vulnerable. It would be very dangerous for him to be hit by a flying spell or arrow during a PK. But when he thought about it, the street was quite peaceful. When he asked his old colleague, he didn't even know how he died. Of course, he didn't know what happened on the street either. He only said that everything was normal when he found out. Wu Yi still felt a bit uneasy. But in the end, it was because he didn't really care about his level, so he didn't think too much about it. Among the 19 directors of Age Studio, 4 of them were quite interested in the game. They used the studio's equipment for personal gain. Their levels weren't low either. 3 of them had no interest in the game at all. They hadn't even reached level 10 yet. Most of the rest were more ambiguous. When they had nothing better to do, they would use the game as a form of entertainment. Even though they were just playing for fun, their levels were still earned through hard work. It was just that Wu Ye's mind was full of worries. He didn't have the time to worry about things like levels anymore. Cloud Twilight and the others didn't wait for long. Wu Yi used a scroll to teleport to Bar's city, and then turned around to this street. He was an archer, so his speed wasn't slow. He appeared at the end of the street in about 10 minutes. He was in a hurry. This time he didn't walk slowly. Instead he ran. The game was different from the real world. Players in the game had amazing endurance. As long as they didn't have to match the team's speed, they would run 80% of the time. The more experienced a player was, the more they would run. Therefore, other than the trading street, the other streets in the game were filled with players running around. Wu Yi ran all the way here, but Cloud Twilight was also an expert. He calculated Wu Ye's path and quietly stood to the side, waiting for Wu Yi to pass by him. Wu Yi didn't disappoint. He ran in a straight line. The moment he passed by Cloud Twilight fiercely stabbed him. Why else would Wu Ye's PvP awareness be so bad? He was stabbed, yet he still foolishly ran forward. However, it was precisely this stupidly running that allowed 5 knights to luckily avoid Cloud Morning's second blade that was originally chasing after him. After running a few steps, Wu Yi turned around. Cloud Twilight had already rushed in front of him. The 2 of them just happened to meet each other's eyes. Cloud Twilight was wearing assassin equipment and had his face covered. Wu Yi actually didn't recognize him. He only shouted, "Who are you?" Cloud Twilight had long stabbed a knife into his heart. He had always looked down on those fellas who liked to make long-winded speeches before delivering the fatal blow. Of course, in the real world, the person who dealt a fatal blow would die. There wouldn't be a chance to say anything, so it was understandable if he wanted to say it. But in the game, Cloud Twilight felt that he was too stupid. Cloud Twilight, who was determined not to be an idiot, didn't speak to Wu Yi at all. Kill him. Wu Yi had shown his face, but he had still been killed. Calling it a misunderstanding was a bit unreasonable. Wu Yi felt that this was clearly an assassination against him. Who would want to kill him now? The answer was obvious. Wasn't it Qianli's group of people? Wu Ye's heart was filled with anger. He hated the fact that he could do something in the game's economic field, but in the PvP field, he wasn't even worth a fart. 5 knights had entered the game since the first day of the open beta in the parallel world. He worked diligently and took his time to level up. After being slashed by 8,000 miles drunk during the negotiation of the efficient leveling method, and after being killed by the 10 Guild Alliance in Moonlit Night City, he was only at level 35. After being killed twice by Cloud Twilight, he had already fallen to level 33. With his strength, Cloud Twilight's group of 4 could only say that he didn't want to waste a seat with a teleportation scroll. Anyone from the 10 Guild Alliance could take him down. The angry Wu Yi still focused on his career. He first sent a message to his old colleague, "I can't come over for a while. Someone wants to kill me." "What happened?" "Sigh, it's a long story," Wu Yi said. "Did you offend someone from Cloud City?" Wu Yi had already talked about it in the meeting. Although the directors were absent-minded, they at least knew about it. "Probably. Then what do we do now?" the old colleague asked. "Make a scroll in the storeroom, and then mail it to me," Wu Yi said. "Okay." The old colleague nodded his head. He took the scroll and wrote down the coordinates. He wanted to mail it out, but he saw Cloud Twilight and his group of 4 men blocking the door. They had sinister expressions on their faces. "What are you doing?" Many players would be scared by their appearance, but for a studio member who didn't really care about his level, he didn't care about the danger. He just smiled and said, "What do you want?" "Are you Yingqi's people?" Cloud Twilight asked. The other party was startled. Should he say yes or no? Cloud Twilight saw that he was hesitating. He guessed that this guy was one of the people who had left. He patted him and said, "We are attacking Yingqi. It has nothing to do with you. Don't get involved." The other party smiled. "I'm doing my job." "Your job can wait. It's not like Wu Yi will die," Cloud Twilight said. However, the other party shook his head. Cloud Twilight also knew that the other party definitely didn't care about levels. After appraising the other party, he discovered that this person was level 36. To Cloud Twilight, this person was trash. So he immediately adjusted his strategy and asked, "Which workshop are you in right now?" Cloud Twilight listened to Han Family Young Master's words carefully. Han Family Young Master said that they were poaching people. This meant that Yingqi's people had just moved to another studio. The other party was still hesitating. Cloud Twilight didn't need to hear his answer and said, "I don't think you want to bring trouble to your new boss, right?" The other party was startled. He didn't think that the other party would use such a threatening method. All the 18 directors had turned to Yuntung, but the scale of Yuntung's studio could not be compared with Yingqi after all. It was still unknown how these people would be digested. It was also unknown whether they could still sit in the position of director with great power and wealth. Not to mention the problem of competing with the old employees of Cloud Tongue. The 18 of them were standing on a new starting line together. They still needed to grasp their own path in the future. However, if they brought trouble to the studio before they even started, then their starting line would be pushed back. Cloud Twilight was afraid that the other party would suspect that his threat was just empty words. He didn't hide his identity. "We are from the 10 Guild Alliance. I think you should know how powerful we are." The 10 Guild Alliance had messed up Yingqi's business in Moonlit Night City. They weren't afraid of fighting and killing, but they were afraid of this kind of conflict. When the other party heard this, he knew that he couldn't offend this scourge for his new boss, so he made a prompt decision. "If that's the case, can I go offline?" "Sure, we'll send you over," Cloud Twilight said. The other party smiled and expressed his thanks. Cloud Twilight left 2 of his brothers and another person to send the other party to the revival point and go offline. After threatening them, he had to give them some enticement. Cloud Twilight had a lot of tricks up his sleeves. He asked on the way, "Brother, which studio are you from? Since you've given me face today, I'll ask my brothers to support your business in the future." The other party was very happy to hear this. Establishing a stable business relationship with a big guild like the 10 Guild Alliance was something that the studio loved. He quickly replied, "Thank you. I'm living like Summer from Yinting Studio. I haven't decided on my specific job yet. When I officially start working, I'll definitely make things convenient for you. That's great. Cloud Twilight laughed. Looking at your demeanor, you must be the president of the 10 Guild Alliance, right? Life like Summer wasn't the director of Moonlit Night City, so he only cared about the power situation in the main city under his control. He had heard of the 10 Societies Alliance, but he hadn't paid attention to who the guild leader was. He had only heard of Yin Zhongmu's name on the spot, so he immediately praised him. Cloud Twilight smiled. That's me. The two of them flattered each other, as if they were a family. After a while he arrived at the revival point. Living like Summer sent 5 Knights a message, saying that he had some urgent matters to attend to and needed to log off to take care of them. He would meet up again after taking stock. After saying that, he didn't give 5 Knights a chance to reply and immediately logged off. Before he left, he even waved at Cloud Twilight. 5 Knights received Living Like Summer's message and saw that Living Like Summer had gone offline. He didn't know what happened. But no matter what, he couldn't continue with the inventory here. 5 Knights could only contact another director who was online. This director was one of the 4 people who loved games. Currently, his new boss hadn't arranged any work for him, and his old boss was waiting for the inventory. It was rare for him to be free. He was the director of the studio, but he was also one of the elite members of the guild in the main city. At this time, he was out leveling with the team and was happily teasing the beautiful cleric in the team. When he received the message from 5 Knights asking him to go to the studio, he was very disappointed. He replied in a very displeased manner. Isn't it my turn to come tomorrow? They had all arranged their schedules beforehand. 5 Knights was also helpless. Living Like Summer suddenly has something to do and can't sit around. You can go first. This guy was also helpless and could only agree. Then you can come over. After saying this, he waved his arm and shouted, Everyone train first. I have something to do. I have to go back and hand over a few million gold coins worth of resources. Fuck, keep bragging. Everyone in the team was his buddies in the game. They didn't know that he was the director of the studio. Things worth a few million gold coins would naturally be treated as a super big shot. Everyone laughed. This guy didn't explain and just laughed as he left. He quite liked this feeling. He even dreamed that one day he would take out a large number of things from his studio and open their eyes. It would definitely be shocking. However, he could only think about it. He felt that it was better to keep a clear line between public and private affairs. This guy came back pretty quickly. He kept urging 5 Knights along the way. He was in a hurry to go back and level up with the beautiful girl. 5 Knights had already prepared a scroll for this main city. He flew over and searched according to the coordinates. The main city of Chuck was the same as the main city of Balls in Living Like Summer's side. The name didn't have any intuitive meaning. The ones who came to the main city of Chuck were Yutian Shenming and Unscathed in Battle. Unscathed in Battle wanted to move alone, but it was embarrassing that Yutian Shenming didn't know the way. Instead of following outsiders and embarrassing himself, it was better to follow his own people and be looked down upon. Brother, you went to another city to collect information. Han family young master sat there like a boss. Qianli got drunk and faced the strongest eagle group. Sword Demon was in jail. Jian Nan and the others were considered to be on the same side. And drifting was a bitch. Therefore, Yutian Shenming finally chose to go with Unscathed in Battle. The two of them bickered all the way to Chuck's main city, outside of Ing Chi's warehouse, which was also a large mansion. The two of them waited while looking at each other with disdain. Then they received the last message from Cloud Twilight, saying that the inventory had been destroyed and that 5 Knights should be moving. Keep your eyes open. Unscathed in Battle said to Yutian Shenming. Alright. You can go die already. Unscathed in Battle finished leading the way. In Yutian Shenming's eyes, he immediately lost his value. He wanted nothing more than to be washed away like a piece of paper to wipe his ass. Fuck, didn't we agree that we would each do it once? Unscathed in Battle said. But the first time was me. Yutian Shenming said. I know. Do you think I'll go back on my word? Unscathed in Battle said. The two of them used rock, paper, scissors to fight for the right to kill first. Unscathed in Battle lost. You want to go back on your word? Do you have a chance? Yu Tianxinming sneered. His eyes were good, his speed was fast, and his attack range was long. Unscathed in battle really didn't have a chance to go back on his word. However, he didn't think that unscathed in battle would sneak attack from the side. He put Yu Tianxinming down and stepped on him. Now you have a chance, right? Fuck you. Yu Tianxinming would always inadvertently get ambushed by unscathed in battle at close range. The two of them were both experts. Sometimes, Yu Tianxinming was alert and could dodge, but sometimes he would be hit. At this time, he was immersed in the pleasure of looking down on unscathed in battle. He was careless. The two of them messing around would naturally attract the attention of others. Unscathed in battle was the winner, so he didn't mind. Yu Tianxinming was furious and prepared to risk his life. His hands could still move, so he drew his bow and was about to shoot a burst arrow at unscathed in battle. Unscathed in battle immediately loosened his foot. With a serious face he said, "Stop messing around. Let's get down to business." "Fuck you." Yu Tianxinming still shot an arrow at unscathed in battle. Of course, he also knew that this arrow wouldn't be able to instantly kill unscathed in battle. Watch carefully. Unscathed in battle acted like a big brother who didn't mind a little brother. Yu Tianxinming ignored him. After looking left and right, he suddenly said, "Speaking of which, I actually don't know that guy called 5 Knights." "Really? I don't know him either." Unscathed in battle said. "Fuck." Yu Tianxinming's eyes widened. "You don't even know him, and you're saying that you can take care of him by yourself? I forgot. If you don't know him, then why are you following me?" "I thought you knew him." Yu Tianxinming scolded. "I don't know an egg." Unscathed in battle also scolded. How could this be an egg? The two of them were crouching on the opposite side of Ing Chi's workshop. At this time, they saw an archer arrive at Ing Chi's warehouse. After looking left and right, he sent a message. The two of them looked at each other. Yu Tianxinming knocked an arrow and pulled back the bowstring. 5 Knights. The archer raised his head. Yu Tianxinming released the bowstring. Headshot. "Next time it's my turn." Unscathed in battle said. Chapter 846. Yu Tianxinming felt that he was too cool. He was leisurely squatting in the corner and basking in the sun. When he saw his target appear, he lazily raised the bow in his hand. With a light shout, a swift arrow shot out and casually took his opponent's life. How could he be so charming? Yu Tianxinming hated that his elegant demeanor couldn't be recorded and uploaded to the internet. Otherwise, he would definitely be mesmerized by many female gamers. Yu Tianxinming was reminiscing about how cool he was. Unscathed in battle didn't clearly hear what he said, so he didn't respond. However, Unscathed in battle was afraid that Yu Tianxinming would snatch it from him. This guy could attack from 60 meters away. 5 Knights was weaker than an egg, and would explode with 1 arrow. If he really did snatch it, then he wouldn't have any way out. Thus, when he saw that Yu Tianxinming didn't say anything, he was very dissatisfied. He pulled Yu Tianxinming's ear and roared, "Got it." Yu Tianxinming was interrupted and rubbed his ear in dissatisfaction. When the two came back to their senses, they began to seriously think about the problem. "Do you think he'll come back?" Yu Tianxinming said. "If he's an idiot." Unscathed in battle felt that his opponent was an idiot, but his rationality told him that there were very few idiots in this world. "That's too bad. You probably won't be able to kill him." Yu Tianxinming gloated. "But didn't Yun Zhongmu and the others kill him twice?" Unscathed in battle thought. Maybe that 5 Knights really was an idiot? Since there's nothing else to do, let's just wait. Yu Tianxinming said. The two brazenly squatted in front of the warehouse and looked around at the passers-by until another player appeared in front of Inky's warehouse. This person clearly stopped and was about to open the door. Yu Tianxinming and Unscathed in battle were startled because this person clearly wasn't 5 Knights. Even his class was different. However, he did not have the time to think about it. Yu Tianxinming shouted, 5 Knights, and Unscathed in battle charged forward. This person was, of course, the original supervisor of this city district. He had come to hand over the inventory with 5 Knights. He returned from the leveling area much slower than 5 Knights, who used a teleportation scroll to return from the outer city. Wuxia's death this time, coupled with his previous encounters, naturally made him realize that this was an all-out hunt for him. These people were even arranged according to the route he wanted to take. From this, Five Nights was certain that this assassination attempt wasn't just a private matter involving Qianli's drunk players. If it was just a player, how could they know that he was taking inventory? How did they know that Ing Qi's warehouses were all over the country? It was obvious that a rival studio was involved in the assassination, and the 18th director, who had already resigned, had unceremoniously stood on the side of the new owner and revealed the location of the warehouse. Five Nights was a sinister person. When he guessed, he would naturally think of a sinister method. He felt that the 18th director was working together to betray him and create obstacles for the inventory. Could it be that they wanted to use this method to obstruct the inventory and then swallow the goods? Five Nights' dark personality could be seen from this. The more he thought about it, the more ridiculous it became. After thinking about this, of course, Five Nights wouldn't take the initiative to come to him. Thus he contacted Wuxia and asked the director to make a scroll, and then send it to him. Going directly to the warehouse was absolutely safe. Five Nights was very sure of this. The authority of the warehouse was absolutely not allowed to be open to outsiders. This was clearly stated in the contract. Five Nights believed that the other party wouldn't have the guts to violate it. Moreover, the other party couldn't do it himself. That would be equivalent to intentionally disrupting the inventory. This was unacceptable. After all, between them, they weren't like the players in the game who didn't care about anything. This was their real life. The director was in a hurry to play the game, and was very unwilling to accept such a troublesome request from Five Nights. But after hearing Five Nights' reason, he immediately replied, "Come at me. This is my territory. Let's see who dares to touch you." This brother loved the game. He had good levels and good equipment. Mingling in the big guilds of Chuck City, he could be considered a small force. But when Five Nights heard this, he was even more unwilling. This guy clearly wanted him to be killed. Thus, he insisted on using a scroll to teleport. It was safe and fast. "You're so troublesome. Five Nights wouldn't be able to do the inventory." This director actually wanted to settle this matter as soon as possible, so that he could cut all ties with Ing Qi. Thus, he came over to make the coordinates. But just as he was about to open the door, Yutian Shenming shouted, and unscathed in battle rushed over. The director was stunned when he heard Five Nights shout. Then he heard the hurried and heavy footsteps behind him. This brother was considered an expert. He immediately judged that this was a warrior's charge. Without turning his head, he immediately dodged to the side. "Yo, you have some skills." Unscathed in battle saw the other party's reaction, and was a little surprised. They were professional traders in gaming studios. They would be lucky if they had a level of 20 or 30. Who would have thought that the person in front of them would have such a good reaction? It was obvious that he had been through the baptism of battle. With this thought in mind, he looked at his opponent and realized that his opponent's equipment was not bad. Yutian Shenming used Identify and realized that his level was not low either. The director was a thief. After dodging charge, he turned to look at his opponent. He had seen countless pieces of equipment in gaming studios. Without even using Identify, he could tell that Unscathed in Battle's equipment was top-notch. He knew that his opponent was strong. Moreover, he was an assassin in a melee fight with a warrior. In addition, there was a sharpshooter crouching in the corner with gorgeous equipment. This director had a gaming habit. He immediately sent a message for help while asking in a deep voice, "Who are you? You're here with Five Nights to inventory?" Unscathed in Battle was straightforward. The director nodded. "With us here, you won't be able to enter this door. Wash up and go to sleep," Unscathed in Battle said. "Not necessarily, right?" The director laughed. With his identity in the game, he could easily summon 100 people in this city. Although these two looked very skilled, they couldn't possibly be Qianli drunk, right? This director was a gaming fan. Of course, he would pay attention to a top expert like Qianli drunk. Just as the director finished speaking with a smile, he suddenly realized that something was wrong. How did these two people know about the inventory? Either Ing-Chi or Yin-Tung would know about this. Of course, their new boss also knew that they had some work to do in the next few days. Of course, Ing-Chi wouldn't find someone to kill 5 knights. Therefore, the origin of these 2 people who knew about inventory was obvious. The director's thoughts were very quick. He thought that killing 5 knights was an order from his new boss. His guess wasn't wrong. Although this matter wasn't planned by Nitrite Radical, when he heard that the Han family young master wanted to cause trouble during inventory, he didn't stop them at all. Instead, he actively provided them with the necessary information. It was obvious that he was happy to see Ing-Chi's inventory being disrupted. Of course, he wasn't as sinister as 5 knights thought he was. He just wanted to disrupt the inventory and paralyze Ing-Chi for as long as possible. Although talents were important, production materials were the foundation. Restricting inventory meant restricting Ing-Chi's flow of resources. This was a truly terrifying blow. Actually, just killing Nitrite Radical wasn't enough. He really hoped that these experts would guard Ing-Chi's warehouse to the death. Ing-Chi would be killed the moment they came, and they wouldn't be able to get any goods. If this continued for a period of time, Ing-Chi would really be done for. Of course, Nitrite Radical could only look forward to it or hint at it. He definitely couldn't take the initiative to plan such a thing. Poaching people wasn't a big deal. However, using such a method to make a fuss in the game was something that the industry despised. Only studios that wanted to be ostracized would use such a method. But now, Ing-Chi had offended someone they shouldn't have. There were really players who used such a method to attack them. Nitrite Radical was very happy. He believed that if other studios knew about this, they would be just as happy as he was. Han family young master definitely couldn't be offended, Nitrite Radical thought. He now suspected that this guy had planned to use such a method to completely destroy Ing-Chi. Perhaps he didn't need to hint at it at all. So there's a way for players to destroy studios through battle. Nitrite Radical muttered to himself after pondering over the pros and cons of this matter. The director, whose mind was racing, immediately hesitated when he deduced that this was definitely the intention of the new boss. He was in this industry, so of course he knew that such a method was very improper. However, he also happened to know that 5 knights had indeed offended a group of players in the game on behalf of Ing-Chi. Perhaps this was really the behavior of players, so the new boss took advantage of the situation and casually gave him some information? This director was really a smart person. After analyzing the pros and cons, he actually completely dug out the truth. However, he didn't dare to confirm it himself. After thinking about it, he still sent a vague message to Nitrite Radical, wanting to sound him out. He racked his brains and tried to be tactful, but he still sent a message that expressed his intention. Nitrite Radical's reply was only 4 words. Do as you see fit. The director immediately understood. Do as you see fit. What else could he do? Of course, he had to consider from the perspective of the new boss. Then, wasn't it easy to do? The director immediately sent a message to 5 knights. First, he sent a bunch of blocked profanities. At the end, he said, "Fuck. As expected, there's an ambush. They even want to kill me. I can't get through, so what should I do? Why don't we do it another time?" Of course, this guy made up an excuse, but 5 knights saw it and shouted, "As expected." He was already wholeheartedly suspecting that the other party had colluded to steal Ing-Chi's goods. Otherwise, how would they digest so many people at once? If they suddenly had such a large batch of goods, of course, there wouldn't be a problem. Vicious. Really vicious. 5 knights thought of the conspiracy in his own mind, and cited how vicious it was. He believed that the other places would definitely have similar arrangements. He definitely wouldn't be able to get close, and the other party would also find an excuse not to provide teleportation scrolls. Previously, he thought that Wuxia really had something up his sleeves. Now that he looked at it, it was a conspiracy. It was all a conspiracy. It was so difficult for these 18 people to stay online and put on a show. Why didn't you just hide offline and solve the problem? At this moment, 5 knights didn't contact the next person. He directly went offline. He wanted to contact the offline boss, unparalleled wonder, to see how this matter could be dealt with. The director perfunctorily brushed off 5 knights. He looked at unscathed in battle, who looked like he was going to cut him up at any time, and squeezed out a smile. Then I'll be leaving first. You guys continue with your work. Unscathed in battle, and Yutian Shiming didn't know that in this short period of time, the other party had so many thoughts. Even the nitrite radicals had interfered. The two were at a loss. Unscathed in battle scratched his head and said, "Then is 5 Knights still coming?" 5 Knights? He's already offline. How can he come? After saying this, he hurriedly left. He also knew the pros and cons of this matter. This required those pure players to take the initiative. It was better for those with studio identities to not interfere. 5 Knights is offline? Really? Unscathed in battle said. I think it's a trap. He's using this method to trick us into leaving, and then sneak over. Yutian Shiming was also a little clever. However, at this time, this small matter had already been mixed with the interests of many parties. It was very complicated. His little cleverness obviously couldn't see through it. While the two of them were muttering to themselves, they still informed everyone about what was going on. He's offline? That's fast. Han family young master said. Those who were familiar with the situation immediately knew that this guy had predicted it. So Unscathed in battle and Yutian Shiming didn't say anything. They wouldn't say anything like pretending to be offline. That would be looking for contempt. Han family young master was still cautious. He went to find nitrite radicals for confirmation. He knew that nitrite radicals had a way to do it. Nitrite radicals strongly supported Han family young master's actions, but after completely understanding the pros and cons, he couldn't be too obvious. So he laughed it off and said something. I'm not here. Do you need something? Do you need me to get someone to send a letter? Han family young master found it funny when he received his reply. Previously, when he told him to kill this person, nitrite radicals muttered that killing people wouldn't affect their studio much. Now it seemed like he finally understood. Killing people was just a means, and the goal was actually to restrict the other party's actions. Alright, got it. I'll look for you if there's anything. What kind of brain did the young master of the Han family have? He wouldn't be as stupid as nitrite. He immediately understood this fellow's thoughts, so he didn't take the initiative to ask about the benefits of doing so, because he knew that nitrite had completely understood. Sure enough, nitrite radical's reply was subtle, but full of ambiguity. Don't be shy. Just tell me if there's anything. We're already friends. Of course. Han family young master replied with a smile. They were just chatting in the game. Did he have to be so secretive? Han family young master really wanted to look down on nitrite radicals. However, he remembered that the studio was a relatively special group. Their influence on the game was actually much greater than any top player. Perhaps the game company was monitoring them behind the scenes? It seemed like he had to be more cautious. Private chats might not necessarily be an airtight wall. Han family young master also informed Cloud Twilight and the others that 5 Knights was temporarily offline. Cloud Twilight had already left. He had established a relationship with Sheng like summer, and he clearly felt that his threats and promises were effective. He added that person as a friend, and he also knew about the warehouse. Cloud Twilight felt that the location was relatively easy to control, so he made a scroll with coordinates and prepared to fly back. Although Cloud Twilight was the guild leader of a big guild, he wasn't very rich. This time, the scroll was flying around, and it made his heart ache. Fortunately, he had the huge sum of money that Qianli had given him when he was drunk, so he didn't have to worry about making ends meet. Letting the players in the guild raise funds was actually quite annoying. Cloud Twilight was actually glad that he had this sum of money. When he returned to Grassy City, Han family young master was still sitting at that table in the tavern. He hadn't moved a single inch. The only change was that there were more bottles in front of him. Just how much can this person drink? Cloud Twilight, who had just experienced getting drunk, admired Han family young master's alcohol tolerance to the extreme. As for this guy sitting there and not going out to work, he didn't mind at all. He sat down and asked, Han family young master, what do you think next? Cloud Twilight had helped him come up with ideas and hadn't made any annoying comments. For the time being, Cloud Twilight had even called Han family young master. Han family young master. Next, what you think is the key? Han Family Young Master said. What do you mean? Cloud Twilight asked. Do you want to play with Ing Chi's studio to death? Han Family Young Master asked. Of course. Cloud Twilight didn't hesitate. Guard those warehouses, don't let them get the goods. Han Family Young Master didn't disappoint Nitrite Radical's expectations, and gave this vicious suggestion. Cloud Twilight's eyes immediately lit up. We already know of 18 warehouses. This corresponds to the number of directors they have. It's clear that this is almost all of Ing Chi's resources. If we can control it, it'll be a great blow to them. Han Family Young Master said. I understand. Plus, their people don't have much fighting strength. This seems easy to do. Cloud Twilight was excited. They don't have much fighting strength, but don't forget they have money. If they have no other choice, they'll definitely hire people to take back the warehouses. They're determined to get it. We definitely can't stop them. Han Family Young Master said. That's not scary. If they're strong, we'll retreat. If they retreat, we'll attack. I want to see how the people they hired are going to pay. Per order? On time? Ha. Cloud Twilight laughed. Boss, they only need to go in once to make teleportation scrolls. One of Cloud Twilight's brothers reminded him. Really? Then let them keep using teleportation scrolls. The cost of transportation isn't low either. Cloud Twilight laughed. If they use teleportation scrolls to slowly move the goods to a new warehouse, we won't be able to track them. Han Family Young Master said. I don't think it's realistic to use such a small method to completely toy with Ing Chi. Cloud Twilight said. So you just want to give them as much trouble as possible? Han Family Young Master asked. That's right. Cloud Twilight laughed. Then do your best. Han Family Young Master laughed. However, at least Ing Chi has a force that can be used immediately. You're talking about the Eagle Group? That's right, I think they've already hidden themselves. Han Family Young Master said. Chapter 847. The scale of this poaching operation was no longer a secret in the gaming industry. Yin Teng's identity had been exposed long ago. Many gaming studios were surprised that such a mediocre gaming studio could be so daring. The people in the gaming industry who had nothing to do with Ing Chi were obviously gloating. However, Yin Teng's actions were still unpopular. Everyone started to pay attention to this gaming studio, just in case they were tricked one day. On the other hand, the bosses of the bigger gaming studios were more at ease. They knew the limits of the gaming studio's development. Yin Teng had almost taken over all of Ing Chi's employees in one go. He had even offered them better benefits than Ing Chi. With the size of their gaming studio, it would be a problem for them to digest the benefits. Some people even doubted the poaching operation. However, many people confirmed the news from Unrivaled Genius himself. Matchless Hero didn't just leave the matter to Five Nights. He was also working hard in the offline world. He knew that Yin Teng Gaming Studio was behind this. This gaming studio didn't have much experience. Unparalleled Wonder hoped to use his many years of connections and influence in the gaming industry to put some pressure on Yin Teng. However, the result wasn't optimistic. Everyone was in a competitive relationship. Even if they were friends, they seemed to be united on the surface. Moreover, Unparalleled Wonder didn't try very hard to build a good relationship with his peers. After this incident, the gaming studios that he approached all gave excuses. They all knew that Yin Teng's studio needed to be taken seriously. However, Matchless Wonder just wanted to use their strength to recover their lost territory. No one wanted to restrict Yin Teng, and helping Chi regain her position. They were more than happy to see both sides suffer. At this moment, they were more than happy to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. There was no need for them to get involved. Unparalleled Wonder's operation wasn't going well. At this time, he received a message from Five Nights. The troublemakers hadn't given up yet. They were getting more and more outrageous. Their claws had already extended to their warehouse. Unparalleled Wonder was furious when he heard this. He felt that this was no longer something an ordinary player could do. There had to be a gaming studio behind this. Who could it be? Wasn't it obvious? Do these guys really ignore the rules? Unparalleled Wonder was furious, and because of this he began to lobby his peers, denouncing Cloud Ting's despicable behavior. He told them that it would be a disaster for everyone if they let such a despicable studio grow. Obviously, the method of controlling resources in the game was much scarier than poaching people. With this statement, many studios began to panic. They began to feel that they couldn't let Yuntung continue like this. Although Yunting Studio was a new studio that started relatively late, it was not a closed shop. It had a say in the industry. They had to clarify what Matchless Wonder had said this time, because everyone knew the stakes in this matter. Yunting naturally translated Matchless Hero's despicable words as slander. When the people in the industry saw that these two families were really going to fight, they happily watched from the sidelines. Logically speaking, Yunting shouldn't have the right to challenge Unparalleled Wonder's studio. But with this move, everyone looked at him in a different light. Unparalleled Wonder couldn't organize an attack against Yuntung, so he could only sigh and return to the game with 5 knights. Only then did he understand 5 knights' situation in detail. Have you contacted the others? Unparalleled Wonder was obviously referring to the other directors. Not yet. I think these guys are now Yunting's people, and they're probably trying to cause trouble. I don't think they're reliable, said 5 knights. You're right, we can't be too careful. Unparalleled Wonder nodded. He had long suspected that Yuntung was behind all this. How could he trust these people who had been poached by Yuntung? Boss the Eagle Group. Although Unparalleled Wonder didn't tell 5 knights about the Eagle Group, 5 knights was still a scheming person. His boss was obviously going to take revenge, so he paid attention to the situation in Moonlit City. This was his territory, and there were even gunmen on the forums. 5 knights could tell that the Eagle Group was being used by his boss to deal with the 10 Guild Alliance. They're my people, so there's no problem. Unparalleled Wonder nodded. It seems like we can only ask them to help with the transfer of the supplies. I'll go look for a new warehouse, and you can contact the other directors to see what they're up to. Unparalleled Wonder had mixed feelings about 5 knights. He was one of the few people he could use at the moment, but this disaster was caused by him. Although Unparalleled Wonder criticized Yuntung's underhanded behavior, he didn't believe that Yuntung was the one who ordered them to guard the warehouse. Ordinary players must have thought of this first, and this matter had nothing to do with Yuntung. Even if they gave him some information, it wouldn't be a problem. Why did the ordinary players treat HT with such hatred and want to kill them all? Wasn't it all because of the failure of Wuxia's plan? Unparalleled Wonder really wanted to beat 5 knights up, but he could only endure it for now. Now that 5 knights had left, there was really no one left by his side. Although there were still some second-rate people in charge of the various cities, they were a far cry from the directors in terms of ability and credibility. The people from the Eagle Group were only hired thugs. Unparalleled Wonder had never allowed them to interfere with the business. These people were also die-hard fans of the game, so they probably didn't have the heart to become merchants in the game. Matchless Hero was also full of worries and started to look for a new location for the warehouse. This time, he decided to unify the warehouse in one place and use trustworthy people to look after it. The address had to be kept a secret, even for directors. This place would become the foundation of Unparalleled Wonder's studio. As for the directors, they could develop their own temporary warehouses, but 50%, no, 60% of the resources of the studio had to be in this warehouse. Unparalleled Wonder was indeed a leading figure in the industry. He had learned from his mistakes. 5 knights continued to contact the other directors. Since Nitrite Radical couldn't directly participate in this matter, he obviously couldn't give these directors orders to cause trouble. Everything depended on their understanding. This time, 5 knights didn't foolishly run over. Instead, he told the director to make a teleportation scroll in the warehouse and send it to him. The newly contacted director wasn't very happy with 5 knights' request, but he had no choice but to do as he was told. At this time, the 10 Guild Alliance players who were guarding the warehouses had given new instructions. 5 knights could continue killing, but he had to ensure that no one entered the warehouse. When the director arrived at the warehouse, he was met with 4 rude and unreasonable people who questioned his purpose and refused to let him enter. The director was stunned. He definitely couldn't beat them, and the people who tried to reason with him didn't listen. In the end, he could only reply to 5 knights truthfully. This director was an honest person. From the beginning to the end, he didn't have as many thoughts and deductions as the previous director, and Wuxia. 5 knights had no choice but to change to the next director. But all the directors met the same obstacle. Wu Yi, who had established his own company in Yuntung, would definitely stand on Yunteng's side. So he just gave an excuse. As for the other directors, most of them were very perceptive. They understood the spirit of struggle, and went to talk to 5 knights. Of course, there were some who were a little more straightforward like the third director, but they were all professional businessmen without much combat power. They naturally couldn't do anything about the 10 guild alliance's forceful obstruction. 5 knights calculated in his heart. He already felt that what he was doing was useless, but since it was his boss's order, he could only continue to follow. The only fun he had in doing this now was to judge the other party's reaction based on his understanding of the other party. At this time, the directors were no longer waiting for Wu Yi to contact them. After a few of them encountered this kind of abnormal situation, they discussed it with their friends who were on good terms with them. They spread the news to each other, and soon everyone knew about it. At this time, even those who were more straightforward understood that this matter wasn't as simple as it seemed after the analysis of others. Everyone clearly understood that they needed to stand on the side of the new owner. However, they still had to go through the motions. Therefore, anyone who 5 knights contacted would run to the warehouse. Then, as expected, they would be blocked. They would seriously argue with them for a while, then helplessly leave and reply to 5 knights. 5 knights numbly repeated the contact and heard almost the same answer. He didn't have any expectations, but he was pleasantly surprised. He wasn't the only one who was surprised. After 5 knights contacted him, the directors of the 5 main cities in the southeast also went to his warehouse in Grassy City as a formality. In the end, what he saw was not the situation described by the other directors. There weren't 4 silent fierce men standing solemnly outside his warehouse door. There was only a black-robed mage player who seemed to be very bored and squatted on the eaves above the door. He looked a little absent-minded with his hand on his chin. Is it this person? 5 knights couldn't understand for a moment. He could only continue to walk forward while paying attention to this person's movements. This person obviously saw him and stared at him, but he didn't speak. He watched him walk closer step by step until he reached the warehouse door. This person still didn't say a word. Bang! The warehouse door opened, but this person still didn't respond at all. He entered the warehouse in a minute and a half, but for a moment he didn't come back to his senses. But very quickly, he saw several figures in the warehouse in a minute and a half. This shocked him and he cried out involuntarily, "Who's there?" "Manager, 1 minute, it's us." A person stood up from a corner and smiled as he greeted 1 minute and a half. This warehouse was piled up everywhere, so there were naturally some places with poor lighting. 1 minute and a half's eyebrows furrowed and he finally saw clearly. "Everlasting? Is that you?" As the director of the southeast side, 1 minute and a half's knew about the Eagle Group and Everlasting. He also knew that the Eagle Group was related to their boss. The boss didn't tell him exactly what their relationship was, so 1 minute and a half's tactful didn't ask too much and didn't tell anyone else. But even though he recognized these people, 1 minute and a half's shock was still there. Unparalleled wonder gave them access to such an important place like the warehouse. It could be seen that the trust these people had was no lower than that of the directors. 1 minute, you're here to count, right? Everlasting asked. After Unparalleled Wonder came online, he immediately told them to put aside the matter of dealing with the 10 Society Alliance and get ready to clear the obstacles in the warehouses of the various main cities. Unparalleled Wonder had just come online, so he obviously didn't know that Everlasting and them were facing a new situation. Yeah, you guys too? 1 minute and a half's confusion. Of course not, continue what you have to do. Everlasting smiled. 1 minute and a half's confusion continued, but he still took out a teleportation scroll and started to make coordinates. When you came, did you see anyone outside? Everlasting asked. Yes, there was a guy squatting on top of the door. 1 minute and a half's reply. Black robe? A mage? Everlasting asked. 1 minute and a half nodded. This guy is really patient. Everlasting couldn't help but exclaim. Is there a problem? 1 minute and a half's reply. He didn't make things difficult for you? Everlasting asked. 1 minute and a half shook his head. Why is it like this? Didn't they stop people from entering the warehouse? Someone at the side was confused. Because there's no need. With us here, we can use teleportation scrolls to bring people in at any time. So what's the point of them blocking this warehouse? Everlasting said. Oh, everyone understood. 1 minute and a half's reply was why he didn't encounter the same situation as the other directors. He didn't know if this was a good or bad thing. It seemed like his inventory was going to go smoothly. Would the new owner have any objections? 1 minute and a half's reply was depressing. He didn't like this special situation, but what could he do? Did he have to make up a lie to pass the 5 nights? But that was impossible. With these people already in the warehouse, they could enter at any time, and he still had to do an inventory. It seemed like unless he died, he really couldn't avoid this special situation. Helplessly, 1 minute and a half's coordinates were set, and he left after saying goodbye to Everlasting and the others. He felt very uneasy. After leaving the door, he turned around and saw that the guy on the roof was still looking at him, but this time, he was smiling. Hi. That guy actually waved at him in greeting. Hi. 1 minute and a half's reply was lost. How many people are inside now? That guy suddenly asked. About 7 or 8. Let me think, 7. 1 minute and a half's reply was very hard to provide information to Gu Fei. He realized that he couldn't stop the inventory on his side, so he had to contribute elsewhere. Oh, do you know all of them? Gu Fei asked. I only know one person, Everlasting. 1 minute and a half's reply. Oh, Gu Fei nodded. Thank you. Is there anything else? 1 minute and a half's reply was a little reluctant to leave. Nothing else, you can go back to your work, Gu Fei said. 1 minute and a half's reply was to leave anxiously. Gu Fei opened the mission bar and counted. There were still 6 targets of the Eagle Group in his mission, and their coordinates were indeed in this warehouse. Now that he had asked Everlasting, it seemed like the others already knew that Gu Fei wouldn't be able to locate them without PK points, so they left the place in a carefree manner. Gu Fei took out the list and accepted the mission again. As expected, they all had no PK points. There are only 7 people left in the Eagle Group, and I don't know where the other 13 are. Also, they don't only have 20 people online, but all 30 of them. Gu Fei sent a message to Han Family Young Master. His wanted search would receive a notification when the target was not online, so this was the system's way of doing things. Players having PK points had nothing to do with whether they were online or not. If they were in the wanted mission office, the number of those who were not online would be automatically blocked from the list. However, this was how Gu Fei accepted the mission. In order to prevent players from accepting targets that were not online, the system would give such a notification. Looks like they are really going to make a move. Han Family Young Master was still in the tavern, collecting information from various sources. He knew the process of 5 nights going from place to place. The reason why he didn't ask Gu Fei to stop them from going to Grassy City was because he knew that it would be useless to stop them. Yin Zhongmu remained in the tavern and didn't leave. He and the young master of the Han family continued to discuss how to proceed. Hearing young Master Han's words, he immediately perked up and asked, "They've already taken stock here?" Han family young master nodded. Good. Yin Zhongmu stood up, full of fighting spirit. Since Grassy City had become a place where they couldn't stop people from entering the warehouse, it was the perfect opportunity to deal a blow to the other party. Unless the other party wanted to use a teleportation scroll as an extravagant method, they would need the Eagle Party to escort them during the transfer process. Han family young master was more interested in the Eagle Group than Ing Chi. However, there are only 7 people in the Eagle Group. Other than that, there are another 23 people who are online, but we don't know where they are. We need to be careful, Han family young master said. You're saying that those people might split up to deal with the guards at the warehouses? Yin Zhongmu said. Han family young master nodded. Of course it's possible. Isn't that even better? Yin Zhongmu smiled. Of course. It was rare for the young master of the Han clan to laugh together with Yin Zhongmu. Chapter 848. Brother Chiu was the leader of Eagle Squad's third squad. He was a berserker ranked 7th on the warrior leaderboard. He had chosen the name Brother Chiu purely out of malice. He hoped that others would call him brother when they called him by his name. However, things didn't turn out as he wished. In reality, because of this name, fewer and fewer people were willing to call him brother. In reality, this didn't have much to do with the name. The key was that Brother Chiu would always be proud of being called Brother Chiu by others. Thus he never called himself brother again. Even the other 9 subordinates of his third squad didn't call him brother. Even though he was undoubtedly the leader of the squad in terms of level and age, but Brother Chiu. Someone beside him called Brother Chiu. This was Brother Chiu's new name in Eagle Squad. It was a name that was close to insulting him. This made him extremely depressed, but the more he resisted, the more people liked calling him Brother Chiu. It was like the reverse psychology of calling him brother. Fuck off. Call me brother. However, Brother Chiu would never give up resisting. Brother my ass. I say, do we get overtime pay for working overtime this time? The person who called Brother Chiu said. This player was called Temporary Execution. His name sounded like an assassin, but he was actually a light priest. He was ranked 12th on the priest leaderboard. How would I know? Brother Chiu replied. The name debate ended after 2 rounds. This was a fixed pattern. When someone called him, Brother Chiu resisted for a bit, and then said whatever he wanted to say. I heard that Do Qing, Lu Lan Shisan and 18 are all dead. Temporary Execution said. Yes, Shisan is still in prison, Brother Chiu said. What kind of reinforcements did they get? With the strength of their Eagle Squad, losing 4 people in one go was something that had never happened before. Moreover, Lu Lan, Shisan, and 18 were all fast players. If they couldn't win, they would always run. It was obviously more difficult to kill them. I heard that people came from Cloud City. Qianli Drunk and Drifting are all here. There should be other experts as well. As the leader, Brother Chiu was very serious about private chatting with Eternal. In the mercenary group channel, Eternal only briefly explained the current situation and what the boss wanted everyone to do. Is it that drifting? Temporary Execution asked. Who else could be drifting? Brother Chiu said. Then it's just the 3 of us. Is that okay? She was a little nervous at the last minute. We've already scouted out the enemy's experts. We're only facing 4 ordinary players from the 10 Guilds Alliance. Moreover, even if the opponent is an expert that is difficult to deal with, we don't have to be afraid. It's not like we have to fight to the death with them. If the situation isn't right, we can just find an opportunity to rush into the warehouse and complete our mission. In short, kill if you can. If the situation doesn't look good, hide in the room. Brother Chiu, who was able to become the team leader, might have a wretched way of naming things, but he was still a guy with calm judgment. Along with Brother Chiu and Temporary Execution, the third player was called Constant Warmth. He was ranked 14th on the Mage leaderboard, right next to P. Green Bull. Now that P. Green Bull had died somewhere, he wasn't happy at all even though he had risen to 13th place. He had a pretty good relationship with Little Bean Green Bull. At this moment he was expressing his condolences, so he didn't really participate in the discussion about Brother Chiu and the Temporary Execution. It seems to be this street. Brother Chiu looked at the address in his hand. Their Eagle Corps usually gathered on the rooftop of the warehouse in Grassy City. In order to avoid arousing suspicion, they almost never entered the warehouse even though they had the authority to do so. Naturally, they didn't know where the warehouses in the other main cities were. At this moment, they had found their way here with the address. Brother Chiu and the others were closer. They had teleported here with the city's teleportation scroll. After walking a few steps, they were on the street. B17, B17. Brother Chiu muttered the house number as he searched for it. Temporary Execution carefully observed the surroundings. Hung Wen also stopped chatting with P. Green Bull and gripped his staff tightly as he followed behind the two. 12-13. As Brother Chiu counted, He looked over and saw what he guessed to be house number B17. It was a building that looked like the one in Grassy City. It was in the style of Inga's warehouse, and downstairs, there were indeed 4 people standing against the wall in front of the door. They kept looking left and right, sizing up the place. At this moment, there was no one else on the street. Their gazes had already fallen on the 3 of them, and they gripped their weapons tightly. Brother Chiu and the other 2 continued forward without batting an eyelid. When they got closer, they used their appraisal skill on them one by one. Temporary Execution heaved a sigh of relief. It doesn't seem difficult. I told you, said Brother Chiu. Constant Warmth, get ready. Constant Warmth didn't say a word. He raised his staff and started chanting. However, he didn't summon the 2 most commonly used fire area of effect spells. Instead, he heard Hung-Wen call out Forest of Ice Peaks, and a series of pung-pung-pung sounds of ice shattering could be heard from the street. Instead, a series of icicles flashed and rose from the ground. A cold and gloomy aura spread out, and the air seemed to be permeated with a thin blue and white color. The 4 players had participated in the battle against the 30 members of the Eagle Group, but they hadn't seen the mage of the Eagle Group use this spell. The 4 players didn't know how powerful this spell was, nor did they know what it was used for. They just carefully avoided the ice spikes drilling under their feet, trying to rush out of this area of ice spikes. Who would have thought that the thermostatic staff would wave horizontally and yell, "Break!" The icicles that were stabbed out suddenly exploded. Small ice shards flew at high speed, and the 4 of them had no way of avoiding such small and dense ice shards. The ice shards hit their bodies and the damage accumulated. The 4 players' HP kept dropping. The moment the icicles shattered, the freezing effect of the ice spell came into effect. The 4 players' movements were greatly slowed. One of the 4 clerics wanted to quickly heal, but his movements were slow. Naturally, he was also very surprised at the percentage of the freeze effect. With great difficulty, he pointed his staff at the target, but the icicles didn't stop. Every small ice shard counted as damage. Under these circumstances, his spells were constantly interrupted, and he couldn't cast any spells. Constant Warmth was expressionless outside the circle. Brother Chiu also didn't plan on attacking. He let out a sigh of relief and laughed. It really isn't that difficult. Here's the difficulty. Suddenly, a voice came from behind them. The 3 turned around in shock and saw a black-robed sorcerer standing behind them. Qianli's drunk? Brother Chiu cried out. Qianli's drunk suddenly disappeared. In a flash, he appeared between the 3 players. He twisted his body and spun his sword. He turned around and slashed at the 3 players with a dual flame flash. Whirlwind slash. Brother Chiu also shouted. Seeing that he couldn't dodge the dual flame flash, he actually used a skill to trade health with the opponent. Gu Fei didn't expect this guy to be so calm and react so quickly. He had just turned around and slashed at one of the players with a dual flame flash. No matter what, he didn't dare face the opponent's whirlwind slash head-on. He immediately retreated out of the circle. Unexpectedly, Constant Warmth also took half a step back. This actually blocked Gu Fei's path of retreat. Moreover, the 2 of them were out of the range of the whirlwind slash. This left Gu Fei an opening on both sides, but Gu Fei, with his accurate judgment, knew that this was a trap. His path of retreat was blocked. He didn't have enough time to dodge to the left or right. Gu Fei, who had no room to dodge, immediately swung his sword in front of him to block. It had been a long time since Gu Fei had used this rough method to block the whirlwind slash. Moreover, against a 2-handed berserker's whirlwind slash, this block had to be faster and more accurate. In a moment of life and death, Gu Fei still managed to do it. The dark streak accurately and timely collided with Brother Chiu's sword the moment before the whirlwind slash reached him. Gu Fei knew that this top expert's strength and skill was definitely not to be underestimated. He gripped his sword with all his might. The instant the force of the blow hit him, he immediately flew backwards. This release wasn't complete. After all, the strength and speed of Brother Chiu's whirlwind slash weren't something an ordinary player could compare to. Pushing 1,000 caddies with little effort was just a visual description. In reality, to use this kind of technique, one's own strength also needed to have a certain foundation. Brother Chio's whirlwind slash with his luxurious equipment more or less exceeded the limits of Gu Fei's current strength. However, he wasn't completely hit. Gu Fei had already deduced this point. The dark streak was shattered by Brother Chio's whirlwind slash, but only a bit of sword wind was left as it swept past Gu Fei's body. Gu Fei borrowed this force to fly backwards and crash into Temporary Execution, who was diagonally behind him. Temporary Execution didn't have the strength, nor did he have the skill to dissipate the force. When Gu Fei crashed into him with the force of the whirlwind slash, Temporary Execution stumbled back several steps and fell face first to the ground. Before he could react, he saw a black silhouette come closer and closer, growing larger and larger, resolutely using him as a meat cushion. That wasn't all. Gu Fei's combat sense was just too professional. Even in this situation, he didn't miss any opportunity to attack. The instant he landed on Death Sentence's body, he held the Dark Knight Streamlight sword in a reverse grip and struck Death Sentence's waist. This was just a normal attack, so the damage wasn't high. When Gu Fei fell, his feet were still on the ground. His body fell onto Temporary Execution's body, and he immediately used the rebound to twist his waist and spring up. This gave Hung-Wen a huge fright. Everything had happened so quickly. At the time, he had been behind Qianli, so he didn't see what technique Gu Fei had used. He only thought that Gu Fei had been sent flying by the whirlwind slash. Even though it was a bit strange for him to fly into Temporary Execution's body, Hung-Wen didn't think too much about it. Seeing Temporary Execution fall to the ground after Qianli's drunkenness, Hung-Wen thought that this was the perfect opportunity to attack. He raised his staff and was about to attack Gu Fei. Who would have thought that Gu Fei, who had just fallen to the ground, was like a spring? In that instant, he bounced back up again. Moreover, the sword light flashed, and the target was actually Hung-Wen. At this time, Hung-Wen's chain fireball was already at the end of its chant, and he resolutely sent it out. At such a close distance, he didn't think anyone would be able to dodge it, but Gu Fei was able to. His body suddenly flipped in the air again, and he managed to dodge the chain fireballs. Hung-Wen's chain fireball was originally aimed at the fallen Gu Fei. The angle was downward, so of course, it didn't fly high. When Gu Fei flipped over, he didn't relax his grip on his sword. A dark light flashed, and Hung-Wen felt a chill on his neck. Even though it was just a normal attack, and the damage wasn't high, that feeling made Hung-Wen's hair stand on end. He almost thought that he was a dead man. Hung-Wen wasn't dead yet, but Temporary Execution was almost angered to death. Gu Fei flipped over the chain fireballs, but the chain fireballs continued to fly forward. As a result, Temporary Execution, who was lying on his back, was blasted into a bloody mess. Temporary Execution opened his mouth to curse, but when he turned his gaze, he saw that Hung-Wen was already at a loss because of Qianli's drunkenness. In close combat, Hung-Wen couldn't cast a single spell. His eyes were filled with pleas for help. Temporary Execution hurriedly grabbed his staff to heal Hung-Wen, but who would have thought that Qianli wouldn't even turn his head? As if he knew what he was going to do, he took a step forward. Fuck! Impromptu Execution. These expert skills were both fast and accurate. Gu Fei's step was also shamelessly accurate. Impromptu Execution's resurrection had actually landed on Gu Fei. Many thanks. Gu Fei actually turned around and smiled at Temporary Execution. Under Gu Fei's barrage of attacks, Hung-Wen's health quickly fell. He was a mage, so the physical damage of the Night Streamer was still reflected on him. Moreover, Gu Fei's attacks were so fast that Hung-Wen felt like vomiting. Fast. Everything could only be described as fast. From the moment Gu Fei was sent flying, to the moment he bounced back up, to the moment Temporary Execution attacked. Everything had happened so quickly. When Brother Chio retracted his whirlwind slash, Gu Fei had already bounced back up and slashed at Hung-Wen's neck with rapid fireball. Brother Chio wanted to rush over to help, but he forgot that Gu Fei wasn't fighting alone. The 4 members of the 10 Guild Alliance were suppressed by Hung-Wen's skill. However, this was an unfamiliar skill that they had never dealt with before. Their equipment and techniques might not be as good as the experts of Eagle Corps, but they had their own determination. At this moment, they broke through Hung-Wen's skill and charged forward. They didn't care how much health they had left. The four of them gritted their teeth and charged at Brother Chiu. Their judgment of the situation was still relatively accurate. Brother Chiu had no choice but to turn around and face the enemy. If Hung Wen wanted to be saved, this was the moment. Brother Chiu couldn't free up his hands, so Gu Fei had already used his ultimate skill. Dual flame flash, thunder palm, and even a bolt of lightning that descended from the sky. With great difficulty he crawled back up from the ground and found a place to heal Hung Wen's temporary execution. Suddenly, he saw a flash of white light. It wasn't the white light that landed on Hung Wen's head, but the white light of Hung Wen's death. Too slow you. Gu Fei smiled as he swept a glance at him, but ignored him. Instead, he charged towards Brother Chiu's encirclement, and gave the other four a look. You guys go deal with him. Even though there were clerics among the four, they were all affected by the skill, constant temperature. Their health wasn't full, and Brother Chiu's damage was terrifying. In just a short while, one of them was already on the verge of death. Gu Fei appeared just in time. The four obediently retreated, but Brother Chiu recklessly charged forward. Even though Gu Fei had attacked him, besieging Wei to rescue Zhao wasn't that useful in the game. Brother Chiu ignored Gu Fei's attack and stubbornly killed that player who didn't have much health left. The other three didn't pay much attention to him either. They fiercely charged towards temporary execution. It was clear that they wanted to take revenge on temporary execution. No matter how skilled temporary execution was, it was just a cleric. Against an encirclement, it could only rely on its own healing skills to survive. Right now, the only hope was for Brother Chiu to defeat Qianli and help him out. But how could anyone beat Gu Fei in a 1v1? Brother Chiu had already displayed 200% of the skills he had learned in the game, but he couldn't do anything to Gu Fei. Even though Gu Fei's sword stabbing into his armor didn't seem that scary, when the skill's cooldown ended and dual flame flash arrived, Brother Chiu looked expectantly at temporary execution. How could temporary execution not know that Brother Chiu needed its healing? But right now, even he himself was a bit overwhelmed. If he used another skill to heal Brother Chiu, would he be able to survive? This was a difficult decision. With his current skills, he could only help one person survive if he decided to execute him on the spot. This difficult decision, temporary execution, was made in just 2 seconds. He gritted his teeth and used a healing skill on Brother Chiu. He roared, "Get into the warehouse." Brother Chiu understood what temporary execution meant because this was the decision he had made before the battle. Kill if he could. If the situation wasn't right, he would run into the house. Brother Chiu regretted his decision. Why didn't he just run into the house without caring about anything? If that had been the case, they might have already killed their way into the house. Those 4 players wouldn't have been able to stop the 3 of them from killing them. In the end, once Qianli got drunk, the situation changed. Right now, temporary execution was forced against the opposite wall. It was impossible for him to get close to the warehouse. Right now, he was the only one who could charge into the warehouse. Temporary execution could only sacrifice himself. For Brother Chiu, this decision was equally difficult, but he had no other choice. Temporary execution cast a decisive healing skill on him. Right now, he was only helping temporary execution stall the 3 players. Brother Chiu roared angrily. He looked in the direction of the warehouse door and charged forward. Brother Chiu believed that even if Qianli got drunk, he wouldn't be able to stop his charge. As long as he reached the door, he could take 2 of Qianli's drunk attacks and charge through the door. As expected, Qianli's drunk couldn't stop the sharpness of charge. Brother Chiu only had eyes for the tightly shut door. Suddenly, he felt his abdomen sink. An irresistible force assaulted him. He could no longer continue charging forward. Chapter 849. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, Brother Chiu wouldn't have believed that such a thing could happen. He felt a push from his abdomen. Brother Chiu looked down and saw Gu Fei crouching down beside him. Gu Fei's left palm accurately pressed against his abdomen. Electric currents crisscrossed, and Brother Chiu felt his body turn sluggish. He knew that Qianli, drunk, could teleport, but Charge's speed was so fast that even if he could teleport, the movement was too precise, and the palm strike was just right. Brother Chiu didn't think that this was any kind of skill. It was simply a miracle. Just as Brother Chiu's heart sank, he realized that his charge didn't stop there. He actually continued to rush forward, and Qianli, Drunk's palm strike seemed to have exhausted all of its resistance. Brother Chiu was ecstatic. He knew that charge's priority was a notch higher. He was so excited that he was on the verge of tears. He turned his head to look at temporary execution, hoping that his comrades could share this moment of joy with him. Sure enough, temporary execution was also looking at him. Seeing him look over, it gave him a thumbs up, but the next moment, temporary execution turned into a white light. Giving Brother Chiu a healing spell had still hastened his death. Brother Chiu's heart was filled with grief. But at least his brothers hadn't died in vain. They had finally completed their mission. At this moment, Gu Fei was also very helpless. He had hoped that the Thunder Palm's knockback could interrupt Brother Chiu's charge, but it looked like Brother Chiu's charge was still a little more effective. Gu Fei was also a little regretful. It looked like he should have teleported the instant Brother Chiu's skill ended and knocked him back. Or he could have used a wall of electricity to temporarily seal the warehouse door. These were all methods, and they might have been more effective. Unfortunately, he hadn't used them. At this moment, even if he wanted to use wall of electricity, he couldn't. The pace of the previous battle had been very fast, and Gu Fei had consumed a lot of mana. Even mana cycle couldn't keep up. Right now, he didn't have enough mana to use wall of electricity, which was currently the most mana-consuming skill for Gu Fei. Brother Chiu kept looking behind him. When he saw that Thousand Miles Drunk wasn't chasing after him, a look of regret appeared in his eyes. He knew that he had really made it through this time. Brother Chiu, who had just finished his charge, had stopped right in front of the door. He didn't dare hesitate, reaching out his hand to push the door open. Unexpectedly, a powerful force came from his abdomen again. Brother Chiu looked down in shock. There was no one there, just a flash of lightning, and he immediately retreated involuntarily. Even Gu Fei hadn't expected this turn of events. The knockback from the Thunder Palm didn't stop Brother Chiu from charging forward, but who knew that the effect could be hidden? When Brother Chiu's charge ended, the knockback effect suddenly erupted and pushed Brother Chiu away from the door. The one who suffered the most was undoubtedly Brother Chiu. In just 1 or 2 seconds, he had gone from heaven to hell, then from hell to heaven, and then from heaven to hell again. The one who suffered the most was undoubtedly Brother Chiu. In just 1 or 2 seconds, he had gone from heaven to hell, then from hell to heaven, and now from heaven to hell again. Brother Chiu was undoubtedly in the most pain. In just 1 or 2 seconds, he had gone from heaven to hell, then from hell to heaven, and now he was back to hell. While Brother Chiu was still retreating, a dual flame flash brushed past his body. The other 3 also surrounded him. They only cared about greeting Brother Chiu with their most powerful skills. Brother Chiu couldn't deal with Gu Fei alone, and now that he couldn't heal, how could he win against the 3 of them? What's more, the other side had a cleric to heal them. The strong Brother Chiu tried to kill one of them, but in the end, he could only fall unwillingly. The one who gave him the fatal blow was naturally Gu Fei. The dual flame flash and thunder palm combo pushed Brother Chiu back a few steps. The warehouse door was getting further and further away from him. Dead. The moment Brother Chiu's white light disappeared, the 310 Meetings Alliance players were a little excited and couldn't believe it. They already had an intuitive impression of the other party's strength during the confrontation. Even the cleric, who couldn't fight back, had relied on healing to hold on for a long time. If it wasn't for a healing spell being used on the warrior, perhaps he would still be alive. As for this warrior, even the 4 of them couldn't take him down. Instead, he killed one of them. It was clear how strong he was. As for the sorcerer, if it wasn't for Qianli's timely appearance, the 4 of them would probably have died under that skill. Dead. Gu Fei nodded. Naturally, he didn't think that these people were that strong. However, as he expected, they were all killed one by one. Do you know their names? Gu Fei took out the name list of the members of the Eagle Group to check who had died. No idea. The 3 shook their heads. It's a pity we don't even know their names. Gu Fei sighed. He had drawn a circle behind the names of those he had killed, indicating that he had already killed them once. Thank goodness you came in time, brother drunk. The three of them were still immersed in the excitement of victory. It was your timely news, Gufei said. The three of them laughed foolishly. However, when Eternity heard this grievous news, he couldn't bring himself to smile at all. They had fallen into another trap. Just like how P. Green Bull and Lulan had been killed in Moonlit Night City, the enemy had obviously predicted their actions and formulated a highly targeted strategy. This time, the opponent had prepared scrolls in every warehouse. If one side was in trouble, they would be able to send help from all sides. Moreover, the opponent had calculated that Eagle Corps would split up to attack, so it would be easier for them to send help. Just like what had happened just now, even though Brother Chiu and the other two had gone, the other party had only sent 1,000 miles drunk to finish them all off. Eternal believed that if there were more than 3 people going, then Qianli's drunk wouldn't be the only one who would be sent over. If his entire team attacked one point, how many people would be sent over? Would it be a team that could contend against their Eagle Corps? Eternal was originally very confident in their Eagle Corps. He could tell from the fact that 30 of them dared to directly clash with 100 from the 10 Guild Alliance. However, Qianli's drunk was a terrifying opponent, and it was an unfathomable terror. This person wasn't on the same level as the in-game experts that Eternal knew. His playstyle and skills were like people from a different world. Stop all attacks for a moment. Eternal gave the order. The time it took for each city to teleport to attack was different. Brother Chiu and the others had been very happy that they were close, but it became the reason for their bad luck. Because they were close, the 3 of them were the first to reach the target, and so they were the first to be killed by Qianli's drunk. What if everyone attacks at the same time? Will the opponent be able to deal with it? Eternal had this thought before, but he didn't dare try it. No matter what, Qianli's drunk would always be able to teleport to another place, and this place seemed to have no chance of winning. Moreover, an expert like Drifting had already taken down Green Pea Bowl and Flowing Mist. If another team like this appeared, their chances of winning would be very high. This time Eagle Corps had split into teams of 2 or 3. If another 2 or 3 teams were wiped out, then the number of players that died today would be close to half of the team. Divide or unite, it doesn't seem safe. Brother Chiu and temporary execution. They could still make a choice before they died, but Eternal realized that he didn't have a choice at all. This was a dead end. Where was the way to resolve it? The 3 players from the 10 Guild Alliance were bragging about the dangers of the battle. They were talking about how brave Qianli's drunk was, and how dramatic the last few ups and downs were. The morale of the entire team was greatly boosted, and many players signed up to participate in the battle. Cloud Twilight was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. He personally congratulated Gufei. Gufei didn't think that he had just killed 3 more people, so there was nothing to be surprised about. He simply replied, "It's nothing." This caused Cloud Twilight to sigh. What do you think they'll do next? Cloud Twilight asked the Han family young master. Ever since this person started helping them, the situation had been constantly changing. Cloud Twilight couldn't help but admire this person. Even though his but had never left the bench, Cloud Twilight thought of the phrase, strategizing in the tent, deciding victory outside of Qianli. This was probably the situation. Deciding victory outside of Qianli? Don't tell me they're talking about Qianli getting drunk? Cloud Twilight also had times where he let his imagination run wild. Next, there doesn't seem to be any good choices. If they're stubborn, then they'll fight to the death. If they want to play it safe, then I think they'll choose to wait and see. After all, our people can't guard the warehouse 24/7. Han family's young master said. This is indeed a difficult problem. Cloud Twilight sighed. They had 4,000 players in their guild, but it was impossible for them to use all of them at once. The warehouse cities were scattered across the parallel world, so it was impossible to walk there. If they wanted to go there, they could only use teleportation scrolls. Such a large number of teleportation scrolls required the support of a large amount of money, and this amount of money wasn't something normal players could afford. Moreover, teleportation scrolls weren't something that could be casually dropped. They were also something that had a very limited production. It was only because of their high price that not many people could afford to play with them. If they used them crazily, there would be a time when they ran out. When that time came, they would be done for. Currently, many tactics relied on teleportation scrolls to continue. Teleportation scrolls cost 1,500, 2,000 gold each, right? If I send 100 people to each city, 19 cities will have 1,900 people. 4 people for 1 card, so I'll need 475 cards. Even at the lowest price of 1,500, I'll still need 1,187,500 gold coins. Fuck. Yin Zhongmu cursed after doing the math. Even if they all gathered the money, each person would need close to 300 gold. They definitely wouldn't be able to afford it. It's possible to gather the money, but that's not the way to go. I've already said that the workshop can hire hired thugs. In other words, we might be fighting against the strongest of the 19 cities. There's no way we can win. Perhaps we can harass them repeatedly, but will your guild's players be willing to continue doing things that have no benefit to them? If we want to mess with Ying Qi, we can't just harass them for 2 or 3 days. Han Family Young Master said. Cloud Twilight was silent. Even though his guild was numerous, it had long since ceased to be of one mind, willing to follow whatever he said. In reality, they weren't as strong as they appeared to be on the surface. They were basically the same old group of people, with a small number of people who followed the same path as them joining later on. Then what do you think we should do? Cloud Twilight said. Try your best not to force them into such a dead end. Leave some openings for them to find an opportunity to take advantage of. That way, we will also have an opportunity to slowly wear them down. The Han family's young master said. Boiling a frog in warm water? Cloud Twilight thought of an analogy. Han family young master nodded his head. Currently things are progressing too quickly and too intensely. Maybe Qianli should have let one of them in, and let them achieve their goal. Now, they might feel like they don't have a choice, so it's hard to predict what they'll do next. Within Flourishing Grass City's warehouse, 5 knights and 1 minute and a half second were taking inventory. Beside him were Eternal and a few members of the Eagle group. They didn't care about what they were doing, but they all had unhappy expressions on their faces. 5 knights couldn't be bothered to care about it. He seized every minute and a half to carry out this rare opportunity to take stock. At this moment, 5 knights didn't know what would happen in the next second. A white light flashed in the warehouse. Everyone turned to look. It was the boss of Ying Qi workshop, Matchless Wonder, who had personally arrived. 5 knights wanted to report the progress, but Matchless Wonder waved his hand, indicating for him to continue working. Then he walked over to Eternal and the others with the same unhappy expression on his face. 5 knights wanted to say something to 1 minute and a half second, but he suddenly realized that the person in front of him was no longer his colleague. As such, he swallowed his words. 5 knights snuck a glance at Matchless Wonder and the others. Sure enough, they were also wary of 1 minute and a half second, so they ran off to talk. Things aren't going well. Eternal helplessly reported to his boss. That Qianli is very strong when he's drunk. He's very hard to deal with. In addition, the other side predicted our intentions multiple times and set up an ambush. I think it should be that person from Cloud City called Han Family Young Master. Han Family Young Master. Matchless Wonder frowned. You know him? We've met before. Eternal said. What kind of person? Matchless Wonder asked. Eternal thought for a moment and only said one word. Sinister. What are the current losses? Matchless Wonder asked. 7 people lost levels, but they didn't lose any equipment. Eternal said. Then he saw a look of consolation flash past Matchless Wonder's face. This made Eternal feel bad. It was clear that the boss didn't have much of a relationship with them. When he asked about the losses, he was probably concerned about the equipment. As for the players, there weren't that many pieces of equipment in the game, but the players were. Obtaining equipment required a considerable amount of luck. However, an expert's technique and awareness could be trained even if they had a full set of trash equipment. In fact, they might even be better than a player with a full set of top-tier equipment. Eternal felt a trace of sorrow for him and his brothers. What do you think we should do next? Matchless Wonder asked. Wait. Eternal said. Wait. They can't be online 24/7. Eternal said. Aren't we the same? Matchless Wonder said. But we only need to pay attention to one person. Eternal said. Qianli's drunk? Or is it the Han family young master you were talking about? Matchless Wonder asked. Qianli's drunk. Eternal said. No matter how exquisite a trap is, it still requires a certain amount of strength to execute it. Without Qianli's drunk, I believe that our eagle group will be able to fight them head-on. Therefore, we only need to wait until 1,000 Miles drunk is offline. Then it will be very advantageous to execute any plan. Matchless Wonder nodded. As for Qianli's drunk logging in and logging out, that was something they could control. Because 5 Knights had the experience of getting drunk with Qianli, he had added him as a friend. Perhaps Qianli had deleted him or blacklisted him, but at the very least, he still had drunk Qianli's name on his side. Right now I think everyone should go and rest. Just leave a few people here. As for the location we're going to attack, I want to make a teleportation scroll first. As soon as 1,000 Miles drunk goes offline, immediately notify 30 people to come online, and then directly teleport over to attack. That way, even if they also go offline and notify 1,000 Miles drunk, I think we'll have no problem charging into any of the warehouses, Forever said. That's not a bad idea. Matchless Wonder nodded. First, we'll take back the warehouses. That way, even if there's a big deal, we won't be delayed. We can also take stock of the inventory. There's no need to rush the transfer of resources. Eternal didn't say a word about this. He was only involved in matters related to combat, such as killing a certain player, attacking a certain guild, or taking back a warehouse. He would come up with a plan. However, what Matchless Wonder had said was the arrangement of his workshop's business. Eternal never interfered or asked about it. Then I'll leave it to you. After this is done, come to me to collect some bonuses and give everyone a few days off. Matchless Wonder seemed to be very confident in Eternal's plan, and his mood became much better. He patted Eternal's shoulder and promised. Forever smiled faintly and replied, "Thank you, boss." Matchless Wonder then turned back to the inventory. He nodded at 5 Knights and didn't say anything. After looking at Minute and a Half, he walked up to Eternal and said, "Minute, how are you? Are you used to working at cloud soaring?" It's all right." Minute and a Half didn't expect his former boss to ask such a question. Haha, if there's anything you're not used to, you can come and find me anytime," Matchless Wonder said. Minute and a Half smiled bitterly. He didn't understand what his boss meant. Was he mocking him? Was he trying to curry favor? Or was there some other meaning? "If you have any difficulties or need anything, you can come to me." Matchless Wonder patted his shoulder for another minute and a half. Minute and a Half fell into a daze. He began to ponder the meaning of Eternal's words. Chapter 850. Matchless Genius casually said a few words and left. He was in a daze for a minute and a half. 5 Knights called out to him a few times before he came back to his senses, and continued to count. Eternal and the others came over and glanced at them. They smiled and nodded at the two of them. They didn't say anything and continued to stay at the side. But Eternal's plan had already begun. Other than those who still had PK points, the others had all gone offline to rest. 5 Knights was going to be a monitor. Matchless Genius didn't seem to say anything to him, but he gave him some instructions in the message. 5 Knights felt bitter when he heard this. He had to be in charge of passing messages when Qianli went online and went offline. Did he have to stay online and not rest? The boss's mood fluctuated, and he spoke in a strange tone. 5 Knights didn't dare to say much. Seeing that the boss had left, he hurriedly said goodbye to 1 minute and a half second, and ran over to Eternal's side. "Bro." 5 Knights called out to Eternal. Actually, they hadn't officially introduced each other. "What is it?" Eternal didn't care about his mood. He was always friendly when he spoke to others. "That Qianli is currently online after he gets drunk," 5 Knights said. "I know." Eternal smiled. "Once he goes offline, I'll have to trouble brother 5 Knights to tell me." Eternal knew 5 Knights' name. But what if I go offline too? Five Nights asked the question he was concerned about. Then we'll all go offline and rest. Eternal smiled as he replied. Five Nights immediately understood. Without him, there wouldn't be any messages. Then everyone would get off work and rest. He didn't think that just having a friend on his list would have such an important position. Five Nights' mood lightened up. Why don't you leave me your contact details? When I'm online, you guys can rest more. As long as Qianli is no longer online, I'll immediately contact you guys. Five Nights knew how to conduct himself. Currently, Eagle Studios personnel were falling apart. They didn't even have a target to build relationships with. It wasn't easy for him to find a group of people that his boss trusted. Five Nights hurriedly expressed his goodwill. That's great. Eternal didn't reject Five Nights' goodwill. He immediately left Five Nights offline contact details. This war, which had the widest scope in history and spanned across 19 main cities of the parallel world, had temporarily entered a standstill. Although it covered a large area, the number of people involved was extremely small. No one noticed it at all. In the Moonlit Night City section of the forum, those who sided with the 10 Societies Alliance and those who sided with the studio were still fighting fiercely, but they didn't know that the flames of war had already shifted from Moonlit Night City. Even Yun Zhongmu felt rather helpless when he found out about the situation. He could guarantee that he had already stopped asking people to go on the forums to get back at them. Now that a bunch of people had suddenly popped up to speak for them, even he didn't know who they were. Sometimes, things on the forums were even more inexplicable than in-game. Gu Fei had been waiting bitterly for a long time, and this battle had finally arrived. He had thought that he would receive requests for help from all over the place, but the Eagle Regiment was very cautious. They had retreated as soon as they realized something was wrong, and none of the warehouses were harassed. On the other hand, 3 more members of the Eagle Party had disappeared from the wanted list. With only 3 more members remaining, their PK points would be completely wiped out. Suddenly, Gu Fei remembered that in the previous battle, the warrior had killed a member of the 10 Societies Alliance. In that case, that fellow should have re-established some PK points. Although he didn't know his name, he could try it out one by one. Qianli went offline after getting drunk. Over at the warehouse, although Everlasting had accepted Five Nights' kindness, he didn't really go offline to rest. He had been accompanying his partner, who couldn't go anywhere, and was wasting his PK points in the warehouse. At this time, there were still 3 people left, and 4 of them were leveling up. Five Nights, who was taking inventory, rushed over from the other side. Did he just log off? Compared to Five Nights' surprised and excited expression, Everlasting's expression was much calmer. Yeah, Five Nights said. Let's wait a few more minutes. What if he just went offline to use the toilet? Everlasting wasn't in a hurry as he continued to play poker. Five Nights didn't say much and went back to his work. About 10 minutes later, Everlasting took the initiative to ask him, "Is Qianli still there after getting drunk?" "No, he hasn't been online since then," Five Nights said. "Good, it seems like our chance has come." Everlasting's spirit was lifted. "I'll go get him." After saying that, he teleported away and went offline to gather his companions. Some of the members of the Eagle Party had gone offline to rest, while others thought that they wouldn't be able to find Qianli drunk since they didn't have any PK points. Thus, they went about their own business in the game. At this time, they received Everlasting's summons and gathered in groups of 4. A large number of scrolls had been prepared near each warehouse for teleportation. However, no one knew where to go except for Everlasting. Everyone went to the mailbox at the city gate and waited for Everlasting to mail the scrolls over. When the time came, they just had to follow the scrolls and teleport. Some people went from the leveling area to the mailbox at the city gate, while others went online from the revival point to the mailbox at the city gate. Everyone moved in an orderly manner, but their speed couldn't be considered fast. However, Everlasting wasn't anxious at all. As time dragged on, Qianli drunk still didn't come online. This made him even more certain that Qianli drunk had really gone offline to rest. Bowser's main city was supposed to be Five Nights' first stop. The person in charge of this city was Wuxia, but Yin Zhongmu had personally led a group of people to stand guard here. 5 knights had been killed twice in the blink of an eye, and Wuxia had cleverly chosen to hide under Yin Zhongmu's threats and promises. After Yin Zhongmu left, he returned to the tavern to discuss the plan with the Han family young master. At this time, only 3 players were left to wait silently. Suddenly, a white light flashed at the entrance of the street. It was the light of the teleportation circle. After the light faded, the 30 members of the Eagle Party were already rushing over murderously. Eagle Party! The 3 shouted in unison and quickly sent a message to Yin Zhongmu. Retreat! Yin Zhongmu ordered without hesitation. All 3 of them had teleportation scrolls with them. Twilight in the Cloud knew that the battle with the Eagle Party was going to be a very high-leveled one, so he had given everyone quite a few scrolls. He had invested all the money he had earned from helping Thousand Miles Drunk and the others into this area. The 3 of them immediately teleported away, before the Eagle Party could reach them. However, Everlasting didn't dare to be careless. He ordered everyone to maintain their formation and pay attention to any player on the street. He was worried that the other party's teleportation was just a ruse. In fact, there were other spies waiting for them to step into the perfect trap. Then, with a single command, the other party would appear or teleport over to attack. The Eagle Party was cautious and vigilant. Finally, they reached the entrance of the warehouse. This was the most tense moment, and everyone gripped their weapons tightly. However, nothing happened. The players closest to the door had already pushed it open. Everyone entered one by one, but no one appeared. The warehouse in Bowser City was easily taken back. There's no resistance at all. Did they realize that they're not strong enough to fight us head-on, or do they have other plans? Everlasting thought about his next step as he made the scrolls for the warehouse. The members of the Eagle Party looked at him, waiting for his orders. Everlasting silently sent out the scrolls again before saying in a deep voice, "Next place." The teleportation portal was activated, and they arrived at a new main city. It was the same street, and there were 4 guards in front of the warehouse. When they saw the 30 players coming out from the teleportation portal, they shouted in unison, "Eagle Party! Charge!" Everlasting pointed his sword, and the Eagle Party charged toward the warehouse. This time, the 4 guards outside the warehouse didn't retreat as quickly as the previous 3 guards. Just when Yongyuan felt that something was wrong, the news had already flashed. Everlasting had a premonition. He opened it and saw that it was indeed from 5 knights. Qianli Drunk is online again. There's an ambush. Everlasting shouted. White lights flashed in front and behind them. It was also the light of the teleportation portal. The 10 Guild Alliance had already blocked off the street from the front and back. On the roofs on both sides of the street, the white light of the teleportation portal had also sent people over. Most of them were mages. There was the powerful drifting, and there was also the Qianli Drunk that Everlasting was trying his best to avoid. Everyone from the Eagle Party, do you think you can escape this time? Yin Zhongmu was in the front of the group. He walked out from the crowd and spoke in a majestic manner. Everlasting was calm. He could tell that the enemy's formation was very well planned. There were around 50 players in the front and back of the 2 groups. He didn't receive any information from the 10 Guild Alliance's players, which meant that they were Yin Zhongmu's most trusted brothers. Everlasting had already experienced the fearlessness of these people in Moonlit Night City. The blockade from the front and back wasn't something that they could charge out in an instant. Furthermore, the 2 groups were clearly defending to the death. The enemy's main attack would probably be the mages on the roofs on both sides of the street. The Eagle Party would be squeezed into a small space, and when the area of effect spells fell upon them, they would definitely have nowhere to run. What do we do? Just as Everlasting was thinking about this problem, he heard a voice from the back of the group. Everlasting, do you still recognize us? Everlasting turned his head and saw an archer, a female thief, and a priest that looked like both a man and a woman. The 3 of them were standing at the front of the group. The one who had shouted seemed to be the archer. His eyes were staring straight at the group. Everlasting smiled. This person had asked him if he recognized them, but his gaze wasn't on him. It was clear that he didn't know which one was Everlasting. Of course, This person was someone that they had met in the game before, but didn't know each other's true appearance. At this point, Everlasting was sure who the priest was. The Child Elite group was very famous. Every member of the Child Elite group was famous, and their leader, the Han family young master, was a legend. This was because he led a group of veteran experts, as well as a new expert from a parallel world, Qianli Drunk. Furthermore, he had the appearance of a fairy. These were all topics that gossiped about. Chapter 851. From the fact that Eagle Group didn't even bother to cover their faces, it was clear that Eternal liked to show his face to others. When he heard someone call out his name, he stood out with a smile. Who is it? There weren't many knights in Eagle Group, and Eternal was known to be a knight. Of course, Eternal's gaze was always on a few of them, and when Eternal stepped out, his gaze naturally swept across them. Seeing Eternal's smile, Eternal didn't like it. He wished that Eternal was crawling in front of him and begging for forgiveness. Eternal hated people from studios, and hated people who betrayed their friends. Unfortunately, Eternal was someone who betrayed his friends, so of course he hated him a lot. Cut the crap, let's kill him a few times first. Han family young master said lazily. He didn't express his hatred towards Eternal like Eternal did, but the coldness in his voice couldn't be erased. Since we're old acquaintances, you should know that killing me isn't that easy. Eternal was still smiling. Let's try. Han family young master waved his hand, gesturing for everyone to attack. However, Eternal didn't move at all. Some of the people standing on the rooftops with sharp eyes saw this and shouted. They're going to use teleportation scrolls. Although they shouted, the fact that Eternal would use teleportation scrolls to escape was within their expectations. Apart from interrupting them, they had no other choice but to follow the plan and attack. Magic barrier. A voice came from within Eagle Group. A priest raised his staff, and a wave of light spread out. A small ball with a diameter of 3 meters formed. This was a skill that Yun Zhongmu and the others had seen before. However, it was impossible for all 30 people to squeeze into a 3-meter radius. However, Eagle Group's formation still shrank. Long-range spells naturally came from the 2 main fire spells, but the range of this ball of light was unable to penetrate. The flaming 3,000-layer flames formed a circle around the fireball, and when the heavenly firewall landed on the ball of light, the ball of light quickly turned red. It looked very beautiful. At the same time, white light shone from within Eagle Group's formation, and in an instant, the 30 people had completely disappeared. Fuck! The 100 or so people on the rooftops all exclaimed in unison. Cloud Twilight had already brought his troops over to suppress them. Who would have thought that after just a few steps, their target would already be an empty sea of flames? The Han family young master didn't look too good. Behind him, there were still players wondering, why wasn't the teleportation interrupted? It was a bit stupid to ask this question at this time. Everyone present had seen the function of the magic barrier. Those who were not attacked would not be interrupted, and a teleportation scroll could teleport 4 people. Therefore, as long as 8 people used the teleportation scroll and paid attention to their positions, it would not be difficult to teleport all 30 people away. In fact, there were even 2 extra slots. However, they were able to position themselves so precisely in an instant without making a single mistake. Did the Eagle Corps use this method often? Or was this a planned strategy? Thinking of this possibility, the Han family young master's face turned even uglier. He suddenly realized that he, who had been leading the other party by the nose, was finally bitten back by the other party. Both sides' strategies could be summed up in one word: beat them at their own game. They always wanted to avoid Gu Fei being online, so they used 5 knights to keep an eye on him. When Gu Fei searched for the PK value of the Eagle Corps, he discovered that more than 20 people were offline. When the young master of the Han family heard about this situation, he naturally had some ideas. After discussing it with Yun Zhongmu, the 10 Societies Alliance mobilized a large number of people and set the coordinates of more than 10 revival points with teleportation scrolls. The formations were all the same. When the name of a main city was mentioned, each group of 4 would use the corresponding teleportation scroll, and the ambush that the Eagle Corps had encountered would immediately appear. As for the Eagle Corps' intentions, the Han family young master could only think of one word: wait. But what kind of opportunity were they waiting for? Was Qianli drunk and offline? The Han family young master wasn't that godly to be able to get the answer so accurately, but this was one of his guesses. After trying it out one by one, when Gu Fei finally went offline, it triggered the Eagle Corps to move. Ball City was the Eagle Corps' first destination, so of course there would be teleportation ambushes here. However, this time, because they understood the Eagle Corps' intentions and methods, they only treated it as a ready order, so they didn't activate the ambush. When the Eagle Corps teleported to the next destination, the 4 people who had been observing their movements gave the order. Everyone teleported over, including Gu Fei, who had pretended to go offline. Brother Yu specifically went offline to greet him. Actually, according to the Han family young master's thoughts, with this setup, it didn't matter if Gu Fei was there or not. If he went online, he would expose the trap. However, to the others, Gu Fei's presence was a guarantee of safety. Of course, he was more than welcome to join. That was why Gu Fei went online at the right time. The moment the Eagle Corps stepped into the trap, Brother Yu went offline, contacted Gu Fei, came online and teleported. It was all done in one go. Everyone thought that nothing would go wrong this time, but they didn't expect the Eagle Corps to teleport away so easily. If there were only a few fish that slipped through the net, it could barely be considered normal. However, they left so cleanly and thoroughly at this moment. It didn't matter if the other party had planned this or if they had fallen into their trap. What was important was that the other party had all left, while they were all left in this broken place. If Eternal didn't seize the opportunity to get everyone to split up and fight for the warehouses, he would be too stupid. Han brothers. Yin Zhongmu ran up to the Han family young master to ask about the plan. At the same time, he was extremely vexed. He had seen the other party's cleric's ability before, but he had been too excited during the discussion and neglected this point. If he had been more clear-headed, perhaps this wouldn't have happened. The Han family young master waved his hand. There was no time for a long discussion. Split up. Teleport to the other main cities. Try to form groups of 8. If the other party also split up, 8 should be fine. If they gather together, inform us immediately. We can still use our arrangements. The Han family young master said quickly. Yin Zhongmu nodded. However, there was still a process to decide who would be teleported to where. The original group was still manageable. They just had to return to their original positions, but the new group had to be reorganized. Fortunately, Yin Zhongmu was very efficient. Since everyone was right in front of him, there was no need to go through the trouble of informing them. He pointed at his mouth and gave the order. The group pushed and shoved each other, looking for their own members to teleport to. Some shouted, "Scrolls, we don't have those." Others replied, "Come here, it's with me." Amidst the chaos, there was order. Yin Zhongmu's group of valiant brothers didn't embarrass him. Once they were organized, they immediately set off. White light continuously bloomed on the street. Even before the teleportation process was complete, the first to leave had already sent news back. Yin Zhongmu's expression was ugly. They've split up, but 10 to a team. Despicable. This person is truly despicable. Deepwater cursed. If they split up, 8 people would be enough. If they didn't split up, they could just say the name of the main city and teleport out their arrangements. However, Eternal's arrangements were neither too high nor too low. 10 people made up a team of Eagle Party, and they were well equipped. Killing 8 people was just a matter of seconds. Teleport everyone the name of the main city. Qianli, you move alone. There wasn't much time to think, nor was there time to regroup. Once the other side entered the warehouse, they wouldn't waste any time and would immediately teleport away. When the name of the main city was reported, Yin Zhongmu gave the order to teleport. In an instant, 10 players from Eagle Party fell into a trap. Gu Fei, on the other hand, was alone in a group. The teleportation point was the rooftop. He quickly jumped down from the roof and stopped 10 people. As for the other group of 10, they were helpless. The formation was exactly the same as before, but this time, Yin Zhongmu didn't waste any more words. He roared, "Attack!" AoE spells rained down, and everyone stared to see if the magic barrier would appear again. It didn't. This time it didn't. Amidst the cheers, the players from Eagle Party were wiped out. However, the Han family young master still didn't look happy. Yin Zhongmu was already happily organizing the teleportation to the next location. He felt that since the teleportation ended here, there was a chance that they could make it to the third location. After all, the teleportation point of Eagle Party was quite a distance away from the warehouse. What the Han family young master was worried about finally happened. Gu Fei sent him a message. These aren't people from Eagle Party. A large group of more than 100 people was bullying 10 people. With a fireball, the battle was over. Gu Fei was facing 10 people alone. No matter how strong he was, it would take some time. As soon as he moved forward, he realized that something was wrong. He slashed down with his sword, but was forcefully stopped by the system. The first person in his group was actually below level 10, and was forcefully protected by the system. What's going on? Yin Zhongmu was pleasantly surprised to discover that the Sea of Fire had been filled with white light. Everyone thought that the 10 members of the Eagle Squad had all died, but now they discovered that there were still 2 people standing proudly in the Sea of Fire. Everyone hurriedly attacked like crazy, and this time they finally found them. Fuck. Even though Yin Zhongmu couldn't figure out what was going on, he knew that they had been tricked. This is going to be troublesome. The Han family young master frowned. Quick. Teleport to another city and show me. Yin Zhongmu roared. Chapter 852. No one knew if it was too late to send the message to the other cities, but Yin Zhongmu's order was sent out. Of course, there were people who followed it, and the answer was the same: I don't know. The street looked just like any other street, and the door to the warehouse was always closed. Who would know if the Eagle group had already entered the warehouse? Yin Zhongmu's eyes were about to spit fire. He stared at the 2 pitiful players who weren't even level 10. And were being protected by the system. Where are you from? Yin Zhongmu finally roared. The 2 newbies were very calm. They clearly knew how powerful the system's protection was. They were clearly dissatisfied with Yin Zhongmu's impolite tone. They rolled their eyes and asked, "Where are you from? What the hell are the Eagle Party guys doing? Speak." If it weren't for the system's protection, Yin Zhongmu's saliva would have sprayed on their faces. There's no need to waste words with them. Han family young master sighed. Just randomly recruit a few people from the streets and teleport them. Anyone can do something as simple as that. What could they possibly know? Forever. Yin Zhongmu clenched his teeth. He really wanted to eat this person alive. I think they've already entered the warehouses in the other cities. We've wasted too much time going back and forth. Han family young master said. That's it. Yin Zhongmu wasn't satisfied. He wasn't satisfied at all. He hadn't even killed a single member of the Eagle Party, let alone forever. How could he be satisfied? Boss, someone from the 10 Meetings Alliance came over to calm Yin Zhongmu down. The 2 newbies protected by the system couldn't be used as punching bags. They were worried that Yin Zhongmu would use them to vent his anger. What else can we do? Yin Zhongmu asked Han family young master. At least they haven't entered the warehouse in front of us yet. I don't think Ying Qi Studio will give up on any warehouse, Han family young master said. Do we still want to make a fuss about the warehouses? Yin Zhongmu felt a headache coming on. More importantly, this entire game required a large number of teleportation scrolls. Cloud Twilight really couldn't bear such a high cost. He didn't know how much longer he could last. If you want to continue causing trouble for Ying Qi Studio, the warehouse is the best place to do it. Han family young master said. Cloud Twilight fell into hesitation. After a few attempts, he finally realized how difficult it was to fight against the studio. First of all, the studio was a force in the entire game, while his 10 Guilds Alliance was just a small overlord in Moonlit Night City. Just this alone was enough to cause a lot of trouble. The studio had money and equipment, but for him, he had people. People were the most worthless thing in the game. The streets were filled with people, and he couldn't use all of them. The reason was because of his sphere of influence. Let me think. Cloud Twilight was a bit discouraged. In his career in the game, this was something that had never happened before. Take your time to think about it. The Han family young master's expression was as usual. Cloud Twilight shook his head, then called over a few of his brothers and left for a gathering. It really is that guy. Water Depth came over angrily. The simple conversation they had just had allowed them to confirm that Yongyuan was indeed the person they had expected him to be. How do we deal with him? Luke, who also came over, and glanced at Cloud Twilight's group. I think they're planning to give up. Normal people really can't handle this kind of battle. The background of the opponent's studio is too strong, with teleportation scrolls flying here and there. How much money can they have to burn against the studio? What's more, you're trampling on their warehouse. That's cutting off their source of income. Even if they go bankrupt, they'll still fight you. I actually hope that they will go bankrupt and come after us. At that time, we will be able to escape easily. But it's a pity. The Han family young master shook his head. That guy is too cunning. We've been tricked by him again. Water Depth said. That again is really ear-piercing. The Han family young master looked at him with disdain. You arrogant guy, why didn't you see through their plot this time? Water Depth said. I don't have time. The Han family young master didn't know what kind of reason he had pulled out, but Water Depth was stunned to the point where he didn't know what to say. Beautiful. Five Nights, who was still in Grassy City, exclaimed in admiration when he received the 16 teleportation scrolls from Forever's hands. These were of course the teleportation scrolls from Age's 16 warehouses. We're still missing 2 warehouses, but I believe it won't be long. The 2 warehouses that Forever was referring to were the warehouse that Cloud Twilight and the others had yet to disperse, and the warehouse that Gu Fei was at. Forever had people watching over these 2 warehouses, and he was sure that the other side would give up. These were the only 2 places left. Even if they spent a bit of money to bribe the 2 major guilds to charge in, it would be too easy to do. Brother, you're too talented. Five Nights laughed happily. He knew that Forever had a comprehensive plan. As for the 10 members of the Eagle Group, they weren't hired externally. They were actually people from Ming Chi's studio. 18 of the 19 directors had left, but not all of the 100 city managers and assistants had resigned. Of course, the transfer of personnel was also necessary. The remaining managers would temporarily report to the sole director, Five Nights. Among these workers, there were also those who specialized in managing the business and had no interest in the game itself. It was normal for them to be below level 10. Not at all. Forever smiled modestly. Just do what you need to do. All right. Five Nights had the scrolls in his hands, so he naturally didn't panic. The 1.5-minute inventory was almost over, and Five Nights chose his next stop and started contacting the director. The director had contacted him before, but he couldn't enter the warehouse, so he naturally gave the same reason. Five Nights casually said, "No problem, I'll come and pick you up." He then thought about the other party's reaction and was overjoyed. At this moment, a white light flashed in the warehouse, and the boss, Matchless Genius, had teleported back. Evidently, he had received Forever's good news. Well done. Matchless Genius praised him the moment he arrived. Forever was naturally humble and said, "Are we going to continue with Moonlit Night City's attack on the 10 Guilds Alliance?" "Yes. Of course. Aren't they the ones who came to cause trouble? How can we not teach them a lesson? We'll beat them up. I've seen the forums, and we have the upper hand in public opinion. There's nothing to be afraid of. We're just defending ourselves, ha 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 ha." Matchless Genius was in a good mood, mainly because the warehouse issue had been resolved. This was the foundation of his business, and just like Luku had said for the warehouse, he had to put his life on the line. "Have you found a new warehouse, boss?" Five Nights came over and asked. "We've found a few, and we're still in discussion," Matchless Genius said. After the siege, some of the city areas were handed over to the player guilds. Do you think we should find a place like this and gather them all together? This way, if someone tries to cause trouble in the future, the guilds can't just sit back and do nothing, right? Forever suggested. Haha, you're thinking the same thing. What, do you have any friends in this area? Matchless Genius said. Nope, that's just my suggestion. Forever said. I need to find a safe city, I can't provoke these madmen again. It seemed like Matchless Genius was still traumatized. At least he understood that if the players wanted to cause trouble for his organization, they could still cause a lot of trouble. On the 10 Guilds Alliance's side, after discussing with his brothers, Cloud Twilight decided to give up on causing trouble for Ingqi's organization. But in Moonlit Night City, Ingqi will never have a good time. Cloud Twilight gave himself a way out. With your determination, they won't let you have it. The Eagle Group will come back for you. Han Family Young Master laughed. Cloud Twilight was depressed. After so much trouble, they were back to square one. They were still in Moonlit Night City, and they still had to defend against the Eagle Group. What was the point of spending so much money to fly all over the world? After thinking about it, the Eagle Group's casualties were all caused by Qianli's drunkenness. Did they do anything? However, after all, the travel expenses didn't exceed the sum of money Thousand Li Drunk had given him back then. This made Yun Zhongmu feel a bit better. He didn't even realize that he was already trying to find a way out of this embarrassing situation. Let's go back first. Cloud Twilight was a little dejected. Be careful. Han Family Young Master said. Of course, he wasn't being polite. He really did need to be careful. Cloud Twilight could only gloomy once more. The scenery of Moonlit Night City was still the same, but Cloud Twilight's heart was still heavy. The Eagle Group was still causing trouble. When would they come? Cloud Twilight didn't know, but he knew one thing. The masters in Cloud City weren't going to let go of the Eagle Group. They might stop fighting with Ingqi, but they wouldn't stop fighting the Eagle Group. That forever seemed to have a grudge with the Han Family Young Master, and even Shui of Shady City. Yin Zhongmu was very experienced. He could tell just from the 2 sentences that Eternal had said to them at the front lines. That Shui and the Han Family Young Master, one was excited and the other was cold. The grudge between them wasn't light. But their grudge was with the Eagle Group. But what about the 10 Society Alliance? They had a grudge with Ingqi's studio. The Eagle Group was just a weapon in Ingqi's hands. Because of the personal grudge between Forever and the Han Family Young Master, the Eagle Group was being held back by these masters. The Eagle Group might be finished, but against the 10 Society Alliance, Ingqi could form the 2nd Eagle Group and the 3rd Eagle Group at any time. Could the 10 Society Alliance survive this endless harassment? And this trouble was caused by a personal decision of his, which led to a series of conflicts. In the end, he implicated a large group of brothers and caused them to drop levels. What should he do? Chapter 853. Yin Zhongmu felt very tired. Playing games should have been a happy thing, but now he only felt mentally and physically exhausted. The 10 Meetings Alliance was getting bigger and bigger, but the feeling of playing games was getting less and less. He felt that he wasn't suited to be the boss of thousands of people. Dozens of brothers who were like each other, eating, drinking, and fooling around together was the most suitable for him. His current identity had already exceeded his limits. He worked hard to learn and adapt, but it made him tired. He even started to miss Silvermoon. He missed the dog-like life when he was chased by the previous world. Although he gritted his teeth every day, he was still very energetic, unlike now where he was tired. What to do, what to do, what to do? At this moment, his ears were filled with this voice. Yin Zhongmu was in a trance. Suddenly, an idea sprouted in his heart, and he couldn't get rid of it. Far away in an unknown main city. Does anyone want to make a guest appearance? Come if you want to. After the 10 Meetings Alliances, people had all left. The only ones left on the streets were Han Family Young Master, and the others who came from Cloud City. How long do you plan on staying in that godforsaken place? Han Family Young Master sent a message to Gu Fei. Gu Fei went to the main city, and after exposing the fake Eagle Group, he still hadn't returned. The warehouses should have been taken back by them, right? Gu Fei obviously saw through the Eagle Group's plot. Without a doubt. Han Family Young Master said. But at least we still control 2, right? The one on my side and the one on your side. Gu Fei said. What's the use of that? Guard them, they can't give up on these 2 warehouses. Speaking of which, it's quite troublesome to fly between 19 places. It's much more convenient to guard these 2. Why don't we give up another one and just guard one? Gu Fei had a plan. Guard my ass. There's only 1 or 2 left. We can just gather our people, and if our strength isn't enough, we can just buy people to make up for it. Wouldn't it be easy to get in? Han family young master said angrily. If that's the case, it's exciting. I will guard here. Gu Fei was excited when he heard it. The Han family young master was speechless. Everyone who saw the chat history in the channel was speechless. This was the thought process of a PK maniac. When you told him that it would be very dangerous and that there would be many powerful and irresistible opponents coming to destroy him, he would become excited. Forget about Qianli. What about us now? Han family young master's side had quite a few people left. The elite group had eliminated Sword Demon, and the 7 members of Jian Nanyu's group had eliminated Flaming Robe, Deep Water and Lu Ku, Drifting Left and Right Hand Trio, and Fireball Coward. There's no point in fighting the Eagle group here. Let's go to Moonlit Night City. They'll come back here sooner or later, Han family young master said. Are you really going? Aren't they tired? Unscathed in Battle said. They don't want to destroy the 10 Society Alliance. They want to destroy the voices of opposition against Ing Chi Studio. Don't you understand? Yu Tian Shenming looked at Unscathed in Battle with disdain. Did you hear what we said? Han family young master asked Yu Tian Shenming curiously. Fuck, I thought of it myself. Yu Tian Shenming took a minute to react to Han family young master's disdain. The experts also left. Of course, the situation was understood by the Eagle group, and they sent people to watch the situation on the last 2 streets. Alright, everyone has left. The one watching was Lulan, and he immediately reported. Are they all gone? Forever asked. Ling. I'm going over. Be careful. No problem, I've been watching from the beginning to the end. I didn't miss a single one. They've all left. Lulan was very confident. As a marksman, he had trained himself to be better than the average person. Kite, what about your side? Forever asked. Drunk Qianli, that bastard. He's sitting on the roof outside again. Kite in charge of this side was furious. How many people? Just him. There were a few others, but they already teleported away. Kite said. Forever was deep in thought. For a war that used a large number of teleportation scrolls, if one person didn't leave, it meant that no one left. If it was just Qianli alone, the 30 people from the Eagle group would definitely be able to get into the warehouse. However, they were afraid that the moment they stepped onto the streets, Qianli would send out a message, and they would immediately be surrounded. It was always easier to be surrounded than to be surrounded. Forever didn't have the confidence to escape from a trap like the one before, especially after they had already escaped once. Let's play it safe. Forever sighed. Hire a few mercenary groups over there, and gather 100 people. As long as we can rush into the warehouse during the chaos, we'll be fine. Everyone nodded. Gu Fei sat on the roof, looking left and right, looking forward to the battle for the last warehouse. After Forever reported his plan to his boss, he easily received the funds. In any case, the studio wouldn't be short of money. Forever was a mercenary group himself, so he was naturally familiar with the price of mercenary groups' missions. Although the prices might vary from city to city, after looking at the prices of various missions in the mercenary building, he was already familiar with it. He offered a price that wasn't high, but was enough to attract people to fight over it, and hired 3 ordinary mercenary groups. Mercenary groups with high standards would ask for a higher price. Forever didn't aim to eliminate the opponent in this battle. He just wanted to create a bit of chaos, so that his people could rush into the warehouse. Actually, it wasn't a problem for those below level 10 to enter the warehouse, but unfortunately, they weren't trusted by their boss. The warehouse was an important place, and they didn't dare to let them in. Otherwise, they wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. On the street where the warehouse was located, Forever could vaguely see the guy sitting on the roof of the warehouse. That's him. Forever pointed. It wasn't easy for me to find him. Don't let him escape again. Otherwise I won't pay. Don't worry. The three mercenary group leaders patted their chests and walked forward. He's on the roof. Forever reminded them. So what? When he's in front of him, I'll kill him with a flurry of arrows. Bosses, look, he's just one person. If he was easy to deal with, why would I need to buy your three mercenary groups? You guys add up to over 100 people, right? Forever said. The three leaders thought about it, and it was true. But no matter how strong an expert was, they wouldn't need 100 people to deal with him. This guy is just too good at escaping. Look, he's on the roof right now. If your long-range attacks don't hit him, and he escapes from the roof, how are you going to chase him? Forever said. That makes sense. The three leaders nodded. I think we need to pincer him. The first leader said. We have to get some people on the roof too. The second leader said. Pa. The third leader clasped his hands together, as if he had already squeezed Gufei to death. When Forever saw that the notification was successful, he let out a sigh of relief. According to the mercenary group's rules, they had to listen to the arrangements of the mercenary group. If the boss wanted to order them around, then they would have to pay a higher price. If they died, then they would have to pay a large amount of compensation. Thus, Forever couldn't directly give them tactics, and could only give them hints. He needed to attack from both sides and on the roof at the same time. This way, the other side wouldn't be able to surround him. Otherwise, if they all rushed up, they would be instantly killed in 2 or 3 hits. The three leaders didn't know if they had a discussion, but after nodding their heads, one group went to the other side of the street, the second group waited where they were, and the third group split into 2 groups. One group went to the roof on the other street, and the other went to the roof. After the 2 sides finished preparing, the 4 groups of players started to approach Gufei. When Forever sent out the message, the Eagle group immediately mixed in. Of course, they only used the street. There were around 30 people on each end of the street, and they followed behind like passers-by. If they weren't thieves, then they were archers. They were all fast players. The arrival of these 4 groups wasn't mysterious at all. Gufei, who was very observant, had already noticed them. He got up, straightened his clothes, and jumped onto the street. Fuck! The 2 groups that had climbed onto the roof with great difficulty saw this guy suddenly go down again, and cursed in unison. Gufei was unruffled as he sent a message into the channel. There really are people coming. Is it the Eagle group or? Han family young master's heart jumped. If it was the Eagle group, then the previous plan wouldn't work. Everyone had already dispersed, and the teleportation required 4 people to stand together. Who knew if Yin Zhongmu and the others had already split up after returning to Moonlit Night City? No way, there's so many people. Gufei said. Oh, then die. Han family young master heard that the other side had indeed bought people, and the traps were useless, so he decided to just ignore them. I won't die so easily. Gufei unsheathed his sword, and looked at the players approaching him. When the 2 group leaders heard that he was an expert at escaping, they weren't in a hurry to make a move. They first arranged for their subordinates to seal off the street, and then steadily advanced. Gufei looked left and right, and asked curiously, did the Eagle group not come? The others didn't know what he was talking about, so they ignored him. Who told you to come? Gufei asked. We will never reveal our employer's secret. The other side was very into it. Stop messing around. Gufei laughed. You brat, you're still so arrogant even when you're about to die. An archer in the group was the first to fire an arrow. Gufei tilted his head slightly, and the arrow flew past him, hitting the wall. The others were slightly startled. Did he dodge it? I don't think so. I think his head shook a bit. Gufei's movements were small, and his speed was fast. Many players didn't see it clearly, and they suspected that the archer's arrow had missed. This was too embarrassing. The archer didn't know what was going on either, but he immediately knocked another arrow. The previous shot was a powerful sniper shot, but it was on cooldown. This time he used 2 consecutive shots. This time, everyone finally saw clearly that this person had indeed dodged the arrow. As an expert at escaping, It's logical for him to be good at dodging attacks, right? The archer explained to everyone. Expert at escaping? Who said that? Gu Fei didn't understand. He raised his sword and rushed forward. Chapter 854. Black clothed with a purple sword. This was already a legend, but for foreign players, this legend was still a bit far away. If they were players from Cloud City, they might have already realized who this person was. However, for players from unknown cities, even though they had heard of the legend of Qianli's drunk, their reactions were much slower. They normally wouldn't make such a connection. Of course, their ending could only be described as a tragedy. They always sought to be economical, so they bought a very ordinary mercenary group. From the leader to the members, there wasn't a single expert. Their equipment was also very mediocre. They hadn't seen a peerless expert before, so their consciousness was still stuck in the old-fashioned concept of having more people to bully others. When they saw the person in front of them charging at them with a sword in hand, they were enraged and raised their weapons to meet him. After a flash of light, everything was as clean as it could be. This was bullying with numbers. The team leaders hadn't thought about positioning, formation, or coordination. They only wanted to seal off all paths of retreat, and then each person would unleash a skill at the enemy. Who would have thought that nearly 10 people would die before they could even use their skills? The surviving players couldn't believe what had happened in front of them, and they rubbed their eyes vigorously. After Gu Fei's attack had succeeded, he had already retreated to his original position. With a backhand elbow, he smashed the head of one of the men, then spun around and kicked the man, causing him to stagger. Why are you in such a hurry? Gu Fei looked at the man with a smile. He recognized this person. He was from the Eagle Group, and he seemed to have a bad temper. He often shot arrows at Nie Yan as if his life depended on it. After Kite was stopped by Gu Fei, he was also shocked. He saw Qianli's drunk rushing towards his opponents, so he immediately sprinted towards the warehouse. Who would have thought that Qianli's drunk would return even faster? He hadn't even touched the door when Qianli's drunk returned with a punch and a kick. His attack power wasn't high, but he couldn't run anymore. As Gu Fei spoke, his hands didn't stop. His sword flashed, lightning flashed, and flames burned. Kite's HP dropped rapidly, and the mercenaries behind him were actually discussing. Who is this person? Kite coughed up blood. Eagle Group members were all speed players, so of course they didn't bring a cleric. These mercenaries were really stingy. When they saw a stranger, the first thing they did was to discuss his background. They weren't worried about his life at all. We're on the same side. Kite shouted as he tried to escape back into the crowd, hoping that the other side would send a few scapegoats to block Qianli's drunk. In the end, Gu Fei swung his sword horizontally, and a wall of electricity immediately blocked his path. In the time it took for one Kite to make a detour, Gu Fei had already caught up in 2 steps. However, he had just exhausted all his mana, so he couldn't use any skills for the time being. If he used a normal attack, one Kite would probably just ignore him and continue running. As such, Gu Fei went up and used a sweeping kick. One Kite was alert, and as soon as he saw a leg flying towards him, he immediately jumped. However, he fell into Gu Fei's trap. Gu Fei's leg only swept halfway before he stopped moving. Instead, he raised his hand and grabbed onto one Kite's ankle. With just a bit of strength, one Kite, who was about to jump over the sweeping kick, had already lost his balance. Gu Fei gave him another push, and he was immediately embedded into the wall of electricity. It's over. That was the only thought in Kite's mind. On the other hand, the mercenary group that Gu Fei had killed had yet to recover from their shock. Their leader, who was still alive, was still trying to confirm whether they were really dead or not. After receiving confirmation, the leader began to feel shocked. However, it was obvious that he hadn't realized that the person in front of him was the legendary terrifying killer. He still wanted to bully the other mercenary group players who had just arrived. He shouted at the mercenary group players on the rooftop. Everyone, let's attack together. Of course, the long-range players were the first to attack. However, Gu Fei just smiled and moved away from his original position. As a result, the attacks were directed at Kite, who was behind him. Kite, who was on the wall of electricity, almost fainted when he saw this scene. No matter how powerful his equipment was, he wouldn't be able to withstand the attacks of so many people at the same time. For a person who couldn't dodge, the attacks of the players were quite accurate. Kite instantly disappeared from the street. Gu Fei dodged left and right on the ground. His mana recovered slightly, and he immediately rushed towards the players who were fighting in close combat. After the sword light and the fire, there was naturally a white light. The leader knew that he was afraid now. The other party had only rushed over to attack twice, and almost half of his mercenary group had died. If he still didn't realize the seriousness of the situation, he would be too stupid. Although he realized it, the leader was still too optimistic. He just reminded everyone, "The attack is very high, everyone be careful. Priests, pay attention to the recovery." The priests immediately rose up. Recovery? Recovery my ass. One attack and the people would be killed immediately. Where would they go to recover? Just when the opinions of the small mercenary group were divided, Gu Fei found a target among them. After being sent to the dungeon by Gu Fei, this guy finally came out. As a thief, he naturally participated in this muddy water operation. As a result, Gu Fei boldly rushed into the group. While Bai Shisan was thinking about whether to use sneak or quickness to rush over, Gu Fei's pair of poisonous eyes had already seen him and touched him first. Fuck. The pitiful Yimison only had the time to curse out before Gu Fei's attack had already landed on his face. The other players also wanted to attack, but Gu Fei easily blocked them. Bai Shisan, of course, couldn't withstand it. Suddenly he had an idea and shouted, "I'll hold him back, you go quickly." He thought that Qianli was drunk and wanted to guard the warehouse. If he shouted like this, he would definitely think that someone would approach the warehouse. He would definitely go back to guard the door, and he would be able to escape. Unexpectedly, Gu Fei didn't even turn his head. He just smiled and said, "I definitely can't guard the warehouse with this method of yours. It'll be good if I can catch a few people and kill them." Bai Shisan almost fainted when he heard this. He was really unlucky. A kite was in a hurry to break through the door and bumped into it. As for him, he was caught by a random person and killed. Why didn't he just go and catch someone else? Bai Shisan looked out of the corner of his eye. Lulan, who was hanging out with him, actually wanted to take this opportunity to rush into the warehouse. As a result, when Bai Shisan shouted, that guy was shocked and stopped. He looked at him angrily, but Bai Shisan pretended not to see it. At this time, when he heard Gu Fei's words, that guy continued to run to the warehouse happily. The last time he fought with Bai Shisan, Gu Fei couldn't kill him. He tried to trap him, which made Bai Shisan look like he could hold on for a few rounds. This time, Gu Fei was surrounded and was in a hurry to kill him. How could he show any mercy? Even an opponent like eccentric strategist would not be killed by Gu Fei in such a hurry. In an instant, he could only see the sword light. Bai Shisan didn't know where the attack was aimed at. He could only give the simplest reaction when being beaten, covering his head and face. Bai Shisan had no ability to resist, but the problem was that the priests in this mercenary group were surprised to find that there was a person who would not die after being attacked, so they healed Bai Shisan desperately. After all, Gu Fei's magic power was not at its peak, so he couldn't kill Bai Shisan in one breath. After a few rounds with these priests, Gu Fei suddenly threw a thunder palm at Bai Shisan. Bai Shisan slid out and kept hitting people along the way. At this time, Bai Shisan had become a weapon in Gu Fei's hands. Lulan was running toward the warehouse door while touching the wall. Suddenly he felt a huge thing flying toward him. He was so scared that he quickly dodged to the side. When he took a closer look, the huge hidden weapon that scared him turned out to be Bai Shisan. Shouldn't Bai Shisan be fighting with Qianli? Why did he suddenly come here? As soon as this thought flashed through Lulan's mind, he was shocked. He couldn't care less about Bai Shisan, turned around and continued to run. As a result, when he turned around, he saw Gu Fei in front of him. "Are you also from the Eagle Group? I don't think I've seen you before." Gu Fei looked as amiable as he could be. However, the sword in his hand was as sharp as it could be. When he spoke politely, the sword had already struck Lulan, Bai Shisan, and Bai Shisan at the same time. What are you doing, Bai Shisan? Lulan was puzzled when he saw Bai Shisan still holding his head and squatting on the ground. Bai Shisan had already been beaten to the point that he could only maintain this form. After being pushed so far away by the lightning palm, he was also in a daze. At this time, when he suddenly heard the shout of his companions, he was very surprised. He thought that he had escaped, but as soon as he poked his head out from hiding, he saw Gu Fei's burning purplish-black longsword already coming at him. Bai Shisan was suddenly hit by a lightning palm, knocking a few people out of the formation. Many of the clerics didn't have time to react and couldn't heal in time. At this time, Gu Fei turned around and killed 2 people with double flame flash. At this time, Bai Shisan, who had accumulated enough health, couldn't save himself. Lulan was an archer, so he was even worse at close combat. He wanted to run, but this was different from before. When he wanted to kite and run, there was still an empty space in front of the warehouse door, so he could run quickly. At this time, the street was a mess. Many players on the roofs had also jumped down to look for targets. With so many obstacles, it was impossible for him to run fast. But with Gu Fei's professional footwork, his speed didn't decrease in such an environment. Lulan, who desperately wanted to rush into the warehouse, couldn't escape from Gu Fei's attacks. In the end, he could only turn into a white light and fall. Eternal, who kept receiving news, heard one bad news after another. He regretted not coming personally. If he had given Qianli a drunken agility curse, it would have more or less restricted him. But he didn't expect this guy to be able to accurately pick out the members of the Eagle group and kill them one by one. Perhaps he shouldn't have tried to take advantage of the situation. He should have found a stronger mercenary group. There were too many possibilities, but thinking about it now only made him more frustrated. Can you still do it? Eternal could only ask his brothers who were still alive. I'm in. Eternal finally heard the news that he wanted to hear the most. On the street, Gu Fei was helpless. If it's you, there's nothing I can do. The person who successfully entered the warehouse was 18 Touch. He had chosen to rely on stealth to slowly infiltrate, but after one kite, Lulan and 18 West died one after another. He was discovered by Qianli's drunken. However, at this time his skill range was enough. When 8,000 Miles Drunk's sword slashed down, he had a straw doll substitute. The straw doll shattered under 8,000 Miles Drunk's sword, while he himself had already flashed to the front of the warehouse and pushed in. Hearing Qianli's drunken sigh, he couldn't help but turn around and nod his head. Thank you for returning my dagger. If I knew this would happen, I would have returned it later. Gu Fei shook his head, his gaze sweeping across the sea of players. All right, everything's fine now. Everyone can disperse. Gu Fei mysteriously appeared and disappeared in the crowd, killing whoever he wanted. His boldness finally made the players realize that something wasn't right. It was very wrong. When they heard Gu Fei shout, everyone couldn't help but stop. It was as if they knew that even if they continued, there wouldn't be any results. Go find the person who hired you. He'll settle the bill with you, Gu Fei said. At this moment, the 3 leaders weren't dead yet. They looked at each other, not knowing what to do. Gu Fei suddenly had a whimsical thought. How much money can I pay for you to kill the person who hired you? The 3 leaders were even more shocked. They were only a small mercenary group. In fact, they usually did the system quests more than the player quests. After all, the quests that players would spend money to ask others to help them with were more difficult. These 3 leaders didn't have much experience with these types of quests, so they naturally hadn't heard of such a request before. Is it inconvenient? If it's not convenient, then forget it. Disperse. Gu Fei acted as if he was everyone's leader, giving orders to everyone. You say disperse and we disperse? Who are you? Finally, someone said unhappily. My name is Qianli Drunk. Gu Fei introduced himself. Instantly there was an uproar. When they saw his appearance, they didn't know how to react. At this time, the person had already introduced himself. If they still had to think about who Qianli Drunk was, then they would be letting down Gu Fei's fame. After these people heard the name, they finally realized how slow they were. They stared at Gu Fei for a full minute before finally believing him. You're Qianli Drunk. That's right, it's me. On the surface, the conversation was calm, but the three mercenary groups' chat channel was already in chaos. Fuck, leader, let's retreat. He can even wipe out 1,000 people's 6th rank team. We're nothing. Motherfucker, he actually asked us to kill Qianli drunk. Does he have a grudge against us? Why did someone rush into the house in the middle? Whose house is it? There were many topics in the three channels. In short, they really didn't have any intention to fight against Gu Fei. Even if they were dissatisfied, they didn't dare to show it. They just lowered their heads and left silently. In a short while, the people on the street had left. However, Gu Fei smiled sinisterly and walked in the same direction as them as if nothing had happened. At this time, the three leaders who had left were discussing. What should we do? What should we do? Find that guy and settle the score. The opponent is actually Qianli drunk. Such a target should at least tell us. What kind of guy is good at running away? Does Qianli drunk need to run away? When you say settle the score, do you mean to kill that guy or settle the score with him? Settle the score, and we still have to compensate. If it wasn't for Qianli drunk, would we have suffered such a huge loss? Contact him, motherfucker. The three leaders hurriedly contacted Forever, but in the end, they received the same reply. That guy said that the mission at the mercenary building has been changed to complete. We can get the money. Damn, what about the compensation? Our team lost quite a few people. Damn, I can't send it out. This guy already deleted me. Me too. Fuck, fuck, fuck. The three leaders cursed along the way and brought the three brothers to the mercenary building. Gu Fei followed them from a distance, but they didn't notice him at all. When they entered the building and saw that the three of them had only gone to the system NPC to collect the compensation, Gu Fei felt very regretful. He originally thought that such a custom-made mission would require both parties to complete it face-to-face. Following these people, he would be able to kill until the end. He didn't think that they would use the mercenary buildings system to complete the transaction. I've killed another 3. I've lost the warehouse, Gu Fei announced to everyone. Which 3 did you kill? 8, West 3 and 2 archers. Their names don't match, Gu Fei said. Lu Lan and Yi Kite were killed, and the other side didn't even know their names. Not bad, come back to Moonlit City. There's no rush. I'll walk around here a bit more, Gu Fei said as he strolled around. Another battle ended here. Over at Moonlit City's 10 Guild Alliance, Yin Zhongmu finally made a painful decision after some thought. When he announced his decision and the players in charge of broadcasting it to the 10 guilds, everyone was stunned. Boss, you're joking, right? The guild with the fastest reaction was of course Yin Zhongmu's own guild. He had single-handedly established it, and it had a long history in Moonlit City. It was the head of the 10 Guild Alliance, the North Autumn Guild. No, I'm really tired, too tired, Yin Zhongmu said. Boss, we support you. Who cares about the Eagle Group? We're not afraid. The Eagle Group wasn't scary in the first place. Their backer is Ying Qi's studio. The studio's goal is to make money, not to fight and kill. If you want to make peace, they're easy to negotiate with, Yin Zhongmu said. Are you saying that we should lower our heads to Ying Qi? Many people were angry. No need, I was the one who caused this, so I'll deal with it. Right now, I just want to ask everyone's opinion. If you guys still want to continue the 10 Guild Alliance, then I'll deal with it. If you guys don't want to continue, then there's no need to deal with it, Yin Zhongmu said. Without you, Boss Yin, who can hold on in the 10 Guild Alliance? You're the only one I respect. If you want to leave, then I'll leave too. I've already made up my mind, so there's no need to try and persuade me. Whether the 10 Guild Alliance stays or dissolves, it's up to everyone, Yin Zhongmu said calmly. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.